Open the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Hey, Jennifer, can you hear us?
I can now, yes.
Why is it coming out like that? Is that coming out of the speaker? Yeah, she can. Do you mind talking again? Whoa.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. I can hear you. Sorry, that came out super loud. Alrighty. Chair Reese,
Present.
Commissioner Cornell, Commissioner Glasser,
Here.
Commissioner Mahold,
Here.
Commissioner Dye,
Here.
Commissioner Pinziner,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, I keep messing these up. Hold on. Mayor Pro Tem Sterling. Sorry, I almost said Mahold.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And just for record, Vice Chair Williams and Commissioner Duggan will both be absent.
Okay, great. At this time, if everyone has got a chance to review the minutes, that would be, or have any comment about the minutes, now would be the time to bring it up.
They were extremely short and therefore easy to review. And I sent you my comments, which is no change.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some technical issues, so the minutes were shorter than usual this month.
Okay, no other feedback on that?
Motion to approve?
Alrighty. Commissioner Cornell was not here. Commissioner Pinziner? Were you here?
Approved.
Yes.
Commissioner Glasser?
Yes.
Vice Chair Williams not here. Duggan's not here. Chair Reese?
Yes.
Commissioner Dye, were you here at the last one?
I abstained as I was not here.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem was not here. Okay, that's all we had here.
I'll vote yes.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner, I'm sorry. You did. Sorry, I'm off today. Commissioner Mahold. Thank you.
Okay, great. The minutes passed. Now would be the time if there's anybody who would like to make a comment on a non-agenda item, please come up to the podium or make yourself known online and state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Ron Mitchell of 380 South Jackson in Netherland. I think it's unfortunate that the format of these meetings are such that someone who has a lot to say about a subject only has 3 minutes, when I think I could provide you with a lot of valuable give and take and information that perhaps you would consider at some point when there's something that involves one person who has a heavy stake in it, to be able to speak with a greater intercourse and exchange of ideas than your format allows now. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take that count. Anybody else that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Anyone online?
Can I just make sure that flex zoning is on agenda because it's on the sub area discussion item?
That is a non-agenda item. We're not talking about flex zoning tonight.
Okay,
so please
then I'll
state your name and your address, and you'll have
okay. My name is Cameron Beebe. Jesse Sievers and I own one of the industrial lots, 19 West First Street. And it is about a stone's throw away from multiple central business district zones, and we've been advised that probably it's therefore would have to go under spot zoning. But in the plan and in the discussion item, there's a downtown flex zone that is being proposed, which would be, as the name suggests, we interpret that to be the most flexible. So you could also do some of the still allowable industrial, still do some residential and or commercial in a mixed use case. And we just would really appreciate if we expedited that, because the clarity on the zoning there really helps, allocate our time, whether we need to try to figure out how to apply for central business district. But if there's all these overlays and different new zones like the downtown flex, we would just go ahead and just say, yeah, we want to be flex, which has the reduced setbacks like the central business district and allows very flexible use in the old industrial part of town. What else? That's about it. We would really appreciate that, and we're ready to move. And I think it'd be really nice to get some clarity and really expedite development and expedite revenues now that the town is on the hook for the Eldora acquisition, which I think is pretty cool. So just trying to add some momentum. Thanks.
Could you repeat your full name again, please, sir?
Cameron, Cameron, Beebe, Beebe.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your comments. I will tell you that we do not do spot zoning. That's something that's actually discouraged in our code. It would be good for you to, and we're not probably going to be expediting the flex zone stuff in the time frame that I think you're looking for. So that's not coming probably in the next 2 months. It would be good for you guys to put in an application with a request or come in here and be a little more specific about what you're looking for. The flex zoning is more involved than just your property because it's the entire industrial zone. And so we have to have consensus from all of the owners of the properties there. So if you're having some rezoning requests or something, I suggest you come in and talk to Britt and get something formal on the books so we could talk about it at the Planning Commission. It's not that we don't do some rezoning, we just do not do spot zoning to take care of one owner.
Yeah, all that's underway. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
Chair Reese, can I just chime in really quick just to clarify something?
Please.
You do not need the consent of property owners to rezone property. So when you mention that to rezone the industrial district, you need the consent of all owners, that's actually not true. It's not, you can do it without their consent.
Okay, I may have phrased that badly. Typically, we do not, I would think we would not want to go against what the owners are wanting as a majority of the owners there, but yes.
Well,
yes.
So what happens is that you can, as a town, apply different zoning, but the existing uses can continue.
Could you give us an example of that?
Yeah, so if there were industrial uses in the industrial zone, say there was a mining operation in the industrial zone, somebody was operating a mine, and you decided to change that entire zone district and change the definition to flex zoning, and it didn't have industrial uses in the flex zone, that mine could still operate, but additional uses then would also be allowed.
What would happen if the majority of the owners of the properties say, we are afraid, which has happened, we're afraid of property values dropping, and right now we are not in favor of changing zoning? You're saying we could just basically force it on them?
It's a legislative decision. It's not forcing. It would be a decision that would be done in line with your comprehensive plan. And it's a legislative action that can be taken.
Okay. I appreciate that additional information on that. Thank you for correcting me. When we do see a packet, Cameron, that'll definitely be something that we'll discuss more in depth. And I know that this has come up before about that particular property and the residential houses that are in the industrial zone. That predated, those were built and predated the zoning being industrial there. And so that's something that we've discussed before as a need to try and look at that because it doesn't fit with the current zoning. But it is in the works. We are looking at some stuff, but the plans, the larger plans that are in the comprehensive plan and the sub-area plan, I don't think are coming in the next month or two, as far as big changes like changing that to a flex zone. But it is on our agenda and we do want to work on that and make that property, the most useful as it can be for our community.
Thank you.
Please continue. If anybody else has any comments to add, please do.
Well, it's a clarifying question for my own edification. Those properties, so it was, those residencies were there before it was zoned industrial. I thought that some of the properties, like it was already zoned industrial, but some of those properties were, yes, John.
So zoning was largely created in Netherlands in 1981, and those lots predate that zoning date. And there's some things in code about how we identify and recognize lots that pre-existed the code essentially. And so those rules may apply to those lots, but there's a lot that goes into identifying what happens and what can happen when you do identify it. So it's not that there was like another zoning in place. It just was that was when we codified was 1981 and the houses predate that.
The houses predate the codification of the zoning in 1981. Okay, great. Thank you. Cool.
John, was there anything else that I got wrong there? Anything else you want to
add? No, sir. I think one thing I might note is that the sub-area plan and the comprehensive plan do talk about a flex zone in the industrial lot, but they do not really have design standards or setback standards or anything like that that are identified. And so I think that would be the work of the Planning Commission is to determine what is appropriate in that zone and how that should work. And that is probably something that would take a conversation and may be appropriate for a work session, just so that we can have a free conversation about possibilities and what that might look like. One last comment is that one other possibility is you could create an overlay district there that does include other uses or something like that. That would be an option. But I do think that it warrants a bigger conversation and maybe at a work session if the Planning Commission was open to that.
Okay, that would be to specify what the flex zone looked like and what the possibilities are?
I think so. I think one thing to note is from the perspective of staff, code is explicit in its statement that rezoning should be discouraged. It's a very explicit statement in the code. And especially rezoning a lot that is surrounded by another zone district is probably something that we would want to be very careful about. But I do think that preserving the, right now they're legal non-conforming housing there. I think preserving housing in Netherlands is a worthy goal. And I think that we probably can find a way to accomplish that in a way that is beneficial to all those residents and property owners in that zone in nearby areas. And so I think it just is going to take a little bit of research and work to determine what the best path forward is.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, please.
Well,
Roger.
Well, comment, kind of a question back to John. I mean, isn't, and listening to the person with his comments, I mean, I think part of the whole discussion came because we at this point, we need to separate comp plan and that idea, the flex plan, which is a comp plan idea, but the Planning Commission is still operating under Chapter 16.
Yes, sir. Agreed. And that's what I was thinking. I think it warrants a bigger conversation for you to really think about what's the best land use decision for the town.
For the immediate concerns, when Jesse and Cameron are able to bring that forward and we see it officially, I think that we had a discussion last fall about these lots and these 4 houses. And so what they are is they're very close. They abut up to one side of the street, across the street is Central Business District, and the other side is neighborhood commercial. And what we talked about was maybe extending and carving out just the residences, but that was something that he wasn't ready to come forward. But those were some things that we talked about as a possibility without having, that could potentially happen before we get to the full industrial zone being changed over to flex zone or whatever it ends up being with the discussion on that. So, you know, it could be that particular, those 4 residences could be handled on a faster basis.
As just a suggestion from staff, one option would be is we could generate an aim with some alternatives here for you to consider, either at a work session or a discussion item, just to get the ball rolling on what that would look like. I just want to, there's not really, the recommendation is to create flex zoning, but what that is actually, it's kind of it's an open term, we'll call it, in planning. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It means what we want it to mean. It's just flexible. And what I think it's intended is like a multi-use approach, but even that is something that I think is appropriate for Planning Commission to have a conversation about from a policy perspective in terms of what is appropriate and what should happen relative to the rest of Chapter 16, as Commissioner Cornell noted.
Okay. I'll tell you what, that sounds good to me. What any other comments? Do we have people that would like to see an aim come forward so we can deal with this a little bit sooner? We would probably need a nod of 4, I'm guessing.
Yeah, my only other.
A larger conversation, I would support a work session.
Okay.
I would as well.
Nod.
I would nod. Yeah, what John said is right. This all started with, remember, there was a fire, I don't know, almost 2 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And that started the discussion, and here we are still.
Okay. So yes, John, I think that we would like to have you bring that forward with some possible alternatives. And I think maybe we got somebody who came in just in time here. So we're still on non-agenda items. If anybody wants to speak on a non-agenda item for 3 minutes, now would be the time to come up and give your name and your address and tell us what you'd like to speak on. And to the microphone, please.
Then I logged on about 5 minutes after 6, and it seemed like the conversation was already underway. So
no problem.
I apologize if I backtrack at all, but I was listening in for the last 10 minutes or so.
Could you give us your name and address?
Yeah, I'm Jesse Sievers. I live just across the street. 4th Street.
Can you just for the record tell us your
178 West 4th Street.
Thank you very much. Okay. We were discussing this very thing. Cameron had called in and brought this up, and we had got to the point when you walked in where John, our town manager, had suggested maybe this coming forward with an aim with some alternatives for zoning alternatives on that lot. But go ahead and say your piece. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. So my excavation company is right across the street there, and we were dismayed to see that house burn down. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw the wall glowing, and Angela's first thought was that it was a meteorite hitting. She was in a dream, So anyway, I watched it sit there for 3 years, give or take. And we were friends with Midnight, the young man who burned the house down. And he had some mental health issues, but he's okay, thankfully. I was able to connect with the family, and I bought that house when it was burned down. They were getting some legal pressure from Netherland to clean it up and tear it down, and they really didn't have any recourse. So they had reached out to me, and I had already had it under contract previously, and I dropped out of it. Long story short, I cleaned it up. I now own it, and I'm looking to do something there. And Cameron is my partner, and I've had extensive conversations with John and Britt about what we can do, and we want to do whatever's best for the town, and also hopefully do well on our investment. So I would like to see. I'm thrilled to see that y'all are talking about it in the sub area plan, and I would like to see. Well, for my own selfish interest, and also I think what's in the best interest of the town is a more liberal approach to what's allowed there. So I was considering a proposal to rezone our lot there to be CBD, And that would give us the highest theoretical return on investment. So it would be good for us as investors. And John, for reasons already shared, said he couldn't recommend that. So ideally, I would like to see the flex zone reflect the greatest flexibility and opportunity for me as an investor. And I think that could be, give the most flexibility to the town to do what's in their best interest as well, because it's a huge opportunity for major transformation. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. Thanks for coming in today. Anybody have anything or questions? Anything to add? Okay, that is something that right before you came in, we talked with John about bringing that back to us. And so I'm sure we'll be seeing that in the next month. And if you have an opportunity to come back and give us a little more information and feedback, that would be good so that we can hear directly from you on that as we discuss it and work through it. The flex zone piece for the entire industrial zone will probably be a little bigger discussion and take a work session we were talking about, but we'll see what we can do to give you relief on your property. Okay, thanks for running over here. Okay, buddy. Yep, right behind you. Okay. Any other comments on non-agenda items from online or in the room? You will have 3 minutes. Make yourself known. Okay, having heard none, we'll close the public comment on non-agenda items and move into action items. 5.1, ordinance 878, amending ordinance 856. So I think Britt, are you taking this?
Yes, 1 second, sorry. Okay. So this is in regards to, as you were saying, ordinance 878, amending ordinance 856 regarding the deed restriction language. So just as a reminder, December 5th, the board passed ordinance 856, which stated the deed restriction language. Deed restriction shall remain in effect for a minimum period of 20 years. At the June 4th BOT meeting in 2024, Mayor Billy and Trustee Corvalone brought forth an aim to increase that time period. So the PC has been discussing this language since January 7th. At our last meeting, we brought forward a draft to you all. So during the review and revision of ordinance 856, which concerns amendments to town's deed restriction requirements, staff identified the need for additional updates to improve clarity and consistency. Specifically, staff recommends amendment to ordinance 856 to add a definition of housing development to section 16-322 and revise the eligibility criteria for section 16-323. The proposed revision to section 16-323 clarifies to qualify for affordable housing, all dwelling units within the proposed development must be designated as affordable housing and must be subject to town's required deed restrictions. At the June 25th meeting, the PC recommended bringing forward this ordinance that you see before you today. We've got some proposed motions for you, and we reviewed it at last meeting, but let me know if you'd like me to go through that again.
Okay,
Sorry, that was quick.
that's okay.
We've talked about it a lot, I figured, so I
We've
spare you.
We've seen it. Is there any clarifying questions from the PC members for Britt
I have
or any
one.
staff? Go ahead.
I just wanted to.
Can you move your microphone a little closer to your mouth there?
Sure. I just wanted to ask about the all dwelling units having to be designated affordable. So that would mean then, just to clarify, that an ADU or a separate dwelling can't be designated affordable housing if the primary residence or house is not?
That's a good question. Do you have an answer for that, Jennifer?
Well, it could certainly be They could certainly be designated as affordable housing. They just would not be eligible for the variance.
Does that make sense? Both. So both would need to be, both would need to be deed restriction in order to be able to do the variance, which is up to 50% of those setbacks besides height. Yeah.
I'm not hearing the comment in,
Yeah. Which number are you?
I was just clarifying in this case that you wouldn't be able to build a primary residence with an ADU and try to deed restrict the ADU component independently as affordable housing.
you can, but this ordinance is talking about the eligibility to obtain a variance.
Correct. So in this, if you wanted to apply for this, you would be ineligible in that case.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions before we open it up to public comment? Okay. At this time, if there's anybody who has public comment on this agenda item, we'll close the clarifying questions. We'll open up public comment. Please make yourself known, state your name and address. If there's anybody in the room or online, you will have 3 minutes. Okay, having heard and seen nobody interested in making a comment, we'll close the public comment and bring this back to the Planning Commission. So at this time, we did go over this. There was a few members that were absent last month, so this would be the time if you had some questions or concerns to bring it up. But this is something we've seen before, and I feel like we're in pretty well agreement with it. If there's anything somebody wants to add, now would be the time. Okay, I would entertain a motion.
It's Roger's turn.
I scroll down to it. I move to approve of approval of ordinance 878, amending chapter 16 of Netherlands Municipal Code, clarifying the length of a deed restrictions for affordable housing.
Second.
Okay, let's call a vote.
Alrighty. Chair Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Pensinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasser,
Yes.
Commissioner Dye,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahold,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell.
Yes.
All right. We're good.
Okay, great. Motion passes. That will be moved on for final approval to the BOT. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next discussion item, which is 6.1, the sub-area plan discussion. Who is going to introduce that?
I will take care of this one.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair Reese and commissioners. What you have before you is a relatively long staff report, and I'm going to walk you through it just so that you have kind of a verbal piece along with what you read in the packet. But essentially what you have before you is what the sub-area plan recommends in terms of an overlay district and updated design standards. And what we are here for tonight is just direction from the Planning Commission about whether we can draft a draft ordinance for your consideration, as well as updated design standards for the downtown area, consistent with the recommendations in the 2025 sub-area plan. I'd like to note that what I've done in this staff report is directly outlay the recommendations from the sub-area plan without commentary from me. As a Planning Commission, you have the authority to change these if you see fit. But I wanted to give you the what has been approved right now and what was the result of the engagement that happened as the sub-area plan was created. So that's what is in my staff report. I have a little bit of background in here. I think the really important thing in the background section is that the sub-area plan establishes a pretty strong vision for downtown Nederland. And that is that downtown Nederland is a place for locals and visitors to gather, shop, dine, and play together. Visitors remember Nederland as a distinctive place that has a unique sense of community and laid-back small-town mountain vibe. The architecture is a mix of old and new buildings that reflect the historic character and create an authentic space. Downtown is easy to access and inviting for people of all ages and abilities. Locally owned businesses thrive and make downtown Nederland a unique destination while also serving the daily needs of residents. People feel at one with nature, enjoying trails along the creek and lake, and taking in majestic mountain views. Its historic roots as a mountain town, a ski town, and a music town are reflected through its architecture, public spaces, arts, and festivals. This statement was developed through the engagement process, and it informs the rest of the work in the sub-area plan. In the sub-area plan, it identifies several catalytic projects, and these are the projects that are recommended to achieve this vision. Catalytic project number 2 is the creation of a First Street overlay district and updated design standards. We have talked about this several times now, and I think that you have raised several questions about both documents, which I think is important. And I wanted to talk about kind of both of these things just a little bit. These initiatives, I think why this initiative is important in the plan is that it's intended to generate progress on our downtown goals, to attract reinvestment, and to guide future improvements. The specific recommendation is to establish an overlay district and update the CBD design standards and guidelines to guide future investment and development to respect the traditional character of the heart of downtown, focused around 1st and 2nd Street. This overlay is intended, as you can see in Chapter 4, this overlay is really intended to guide scale, form, and massing of buildings, to support a pattern of development that reflects our identity, and to create a walkable small town mountain, or to, I guess, reinforce a small town walkable mountain identity. It's also really tied to the first objective of the plan's implementation strategy. The other thing that this catalytic project recommends is the creation of adopted design standards. We've talked about these design standards before. They're not presently codified, but they were intended to guide design choices, architectural details, and so forth within the original 1916 town site. I think that's an interesting point that is made here. I think what the sub-area plan contemplates is some easy updates that would make the standards easier to administrate and more aligned with expectations and design standards that we kind of believe in today, I'd say. We've talked about before what an overlay district is, but essentially it's just a zoning tool that can be used to add additional or modified standards within an identified geographic area. You do have some choices about how you might apply new zoning to the downtown area if you wanted to. Of course, changes could be made to the entire CBD district. That may not necessarily be their best approach. You know, maybe it could be like maybe akin to hitting a fly with a hammer. You don't necessarily have the same choices that need to be made throughout the CBD, but you might, and that's a choice that you guys have. Typically, overlay districts allow communities to respond to the local needs of a particular area. And in the case of the sub-area plan, what it really specifically talks about is 1st and 2nd Street in the kind of core area of downtown. The overlay talks about enforcing and extending qualities that residents valued in the plan, which you can see early in the engagement section. And that is that buildings should relate well to the street. There should be pedestrian-oriented activity. There should be cohesive architectural rhythm, and there should be a scale that fits Nederland's mountain town setting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the community engagement that happened as a part of this plan. And catalytic project number 2 is one of the areas that is most specifically tied to that engagement. Over the year that the sub-area plan was developed, there were community workshops, surveys, and open houses. And we really saw participants emphasizing priorities like accessible sidewalks and paved roads, including better maintenance of them, which I think is a fair point. More restaurants and shops, businesses that cater specifically to locals, reuse of vacant buildings, fixing up old buildings, thinking about how we use vacant lots for public space or new buildings that fit with the character, better management of parking, traffic, and waste, and more town-owned parking, including more creekside activity and gathering spaces, connections to Barker Reservoir, the second bridge that we know is a priority for the town, and the potential of a historic landmark district. There's really two key questions that were posed to the public during this phase, and that is, what land use changes would you make downtown? And what placemaking investments would you make downtown? Both slightly different questions. Page 17 of the plan really has a detailed summary of the responses, of which there were several. The overlay district and design standards that we see here in this staff report are one of the really specific ways that we can begin to achieve that community input and start translating those values into place-based standards, I suppose. I guess the next section of my staff report really focuses on existing conditions and design character. The sub-area plan has an inventory and visual analysis of what we see in the downtown area. What generally is this downtown sub-area boundary, which you see on pages 25 through 28. There are currently 5 zone districts in this area. We have CBD, general commercial, neighborhood commercial, industrial, high density residential. There are 4 PUDs here. And that's kind of the basis of all the different zone districts. One thing that was specifically talked about during the community engagement process is how potential redevelopment could happen in the future within the boundary of downtown. That's one of the reasons that the plan specifically recommends the creation of this overlay district, is to really think about what the character of the town looks like as we move forward. I already mentioned the 1916 town site design standards and guidelines. These standards apply to commercial and mixed use properties in the CBD, and the plan recommends that they be updated and codified. And there's a couple of ways that could happen. These standards could be incorporated into an ordinance eventually that would create the overlay district, or we could update that document because it does apply to more than just the CBD district. It's the entire 1916 town site. But by reference in the ordinance, we could say that they apply in the CBD. So that's how we could do that potentially. Yeah, so did that make sense what I said? Okay. Community design preferences is also one of the big things that the plan discusses on page 27. And I think that a lot of this is really relevant to your conversation tonight. Specific preferences that we see in the plan are callouts for 2 to 3 story buildings with upper floors on the 3rd floor, steps back from the street. Excuse me. A preference for varied roof forms and natural materials such as wood siding, rustic metal, and brick, as well as simple box-like building shapes. There's a preference for building widths of approximately 20 to 60 feet to maintain scale of a small town, and a preference against large block developments, unmodulated facades, and heavy use of stucco, stone, or concrete detailing. In addition to these visual preferences, the plan identifies this downtown core of our town as a distinct character area where these principles really matter. So what it says is this area should be the most dense of all downtown, with a mix of old buildings that have been preserved or upgraded and new buildings that fit within the historic character. The creek is an important component of this character area and should be embraced with future improvements. As far as the specific plan recommendations for the overlay district, I'm going to kind of lay them out specifically, but I want to mention again that one of your jobs as a planning commission is to think about these standards, whether or not they're appropriate. It's kind of like the conversation we had with the comprehensive plan. These are recommendations, and you are the experts that know what's best for the context of our town. So what I tried to do here is just be very specific and kind of unbiased about what it says in the plan, present it, and then your conversation can center around that. And what we would do is take any direction you have for us as we're drafting a potential ordinance if we're directed to do so. The sub-area plan provides very direct and specific recommendations for this First Street overlay district. The first is that it should have a clearly defined geographic boundary. It includes yard and bulk regulations. It includes design character objectives, and it has some recommended implementation tools. As for the geographic boundary, on page 24, you can see a map that suggests the boundary for this district. It is bounded by West 2nd Street on the north, Snyder Street on the east, Boulder Creek on the south, and Jackson Street on the west. One important note is that the recommended overlay boundary includes portions of 2nd Street, most specifically on the south side, but the design recommendations are primarily focused on First Street. First Street is identified as the primary focus in the plan, and I think that we may need direction from the Planning Commission about whether these standards should apply just to First Street or whether it should include Second Street as well, as you may have buildings facing Second Street. And I think you might want to think about the activation of those buildings along Second Street as well. Yard and bulk standards recommended, again, just aligned to the community consensus. I had included a table in my staff report that kind of showed the difference between current CBD and what the proposed overlay would include. It also recommends that all PUDs within the overlay district apply to these standards, as well as and also that we should consider eliminating parking requirements for ground floor commercial uses. I have a note in here about House Bill 241152, which has to do with setbacks for ADUs. And I want to note that that is an important factor of how we design these yard and bulk tables. But that is a question for Jennifer as she's drafting the ordinance, and we'll bring forward legal language for ADUs is what we'll do. And so I just wanted to tag that for you that says there may be larger implications for how we handle that.
How would it affect a commercial district ADU setbacks?
We have to allow ADUs in every zone district, essentially where we allow residential. And so I think like it may not matter. I wanted to just say that there may be legal considerations that we need to make as we're kind of looking at it and how big the boundary is. If you were to include like the residential area going down towards Barker, which I don't think is really recommended, but I just wanted to tag it as something to think about.
Good.
In the table, I won't walk you through everything in the table, but some of the big differences are that currently in CBD, max lot coverage is not noted. In the CBD, it's 80%. Minimum setback from the street for all uses is 0 in CBD. It's 10 in the new overlay district. Front yard setbacks for all uses is 10 in the new district where it was 0 before. Front yard setbacks for ground mount solar systems is not allowed in the new CBD, and it was 0 before. The minimum rear yard setback for principal uses is 15 currently, and in the new proposed overlay, it's 15 or 5 if there is an existing or new alley present. Rear yard setbacks for accessory uses is 10 currently, and it would be 10 or 5 depending on if an alley is present. Maximum building height, I'm sorry, for a principal use is currently 35. CBD proposes 2 options: 35 for a flat roof to parapet, or 43 foot for a pitched roof to peak. Maximum building stories recommended in the plan are 3. And it does say that if there is a 3rd floor, there should be a 3rd floor setback on First Street, 20 foot from the property line. The plan also recommends modifying use groups to explicitly allow outdoor sales, eating and drinking, or other outdoor commercial activities or establishments that currently require SRU. I think the goal there is to really create the pedestrian atmosphere that First Street is known for, specifically with our farmers market, and to create opportunities for like cafe seating, like European style cafe seating. It also recommends that we limit marijuana use groups along First Street. For the CBD design standards and guidelines, they were last updated in 2012. The plan suggests updating them. It does say that most of the standards are still applicable. However, it's outdated and could use a refresh with new photographs, new precedent images, complementary diagrams to better explain the standards and guidelines to make them easier to administrate. Additionally, there's a couple of new standards and guidelines that they recommend specifically for the First Street overlay area. The first is height and width. And they are that the maximum height shall follow amended yard and bulk requirements that we just talked about. It recommends that we establish a maximum width for any single building. It proposes 200 to manage scale of development on large and consolidated blocks. It encourages variation of roof height and form for buildings over 80 feet in width to create, to break up the effect of mass bulk planes. For exterior materials, it encourages or requires a certain percentage of exterior materials to be natural wood, brick, metal, or steel. For form and mass, it requires articulation of buildings at maximum of 40-foot intervals to align with historic patterns of development. It asks for articulation methods, and articulation methods, the best way to think about that is things that break up that bulk plane of a large building. And what they ask for is visible column spacing on the exterior, awnings or different storefront treatments along the ground floor. So that could be like a a display window or, you know, just an awning that you would see in a older commercial neighborhood. Wall plane offsets, which is just breaking up that wall, again, the big bulk of a large building. Change of building materials that kind of align to those minimum wall offsets. So there's the appearance of different buildings. Change in roof plane height and slope so that there's variation. And that's really essentially what they're looking for, is a varied skyline essentially, so that it doesn't look like just a massive rectangular building. For developments that take up half a block or more, they also recommend consideration of adding maximum building footprint to manage scale within large and consolidated lots. And then the final recommendation under form and mass is to consider requiring a minimum percentage of open space on the lot. Roof forms, materials, and features. The first is to encourage flat roofs with a parapet or front-facing gabled roofs. We do have that architectural detail in our downtown currently, like the Old West style building with the false front facade, or, you know, having a gabled front-facing roof so that we get that same kind of development pattern. It also encourages simple roof forms. There's a lot of different kinds of architectural detail in here, but essentially it says hipped, gambrel, mansard, butterfly, curved, fancier building styles that are you might not have seen in a mining town are less appropriate for our area. It also states that dormers could be included, but should be kept at a minimum. For storefronts, again, they think we should encourage awnings or arcade front porch designs that provide protection from the elements and establish maximum encroachment of elements so that we get activated streetscapes is essentially what they're looking for. Placement, setback shall follow amended yard and bulk requirements, which are in that table in the overlay district recommendation. It also, this is one of the ones that may be a little confusing, but when a new structure is located adjacent to an existing smaller structure, they are suggesting that we do design work to make sure that they're aligned. So we don't, so that the floor matches, like, so you can walk across easily where you don't have a massive grade difference there. So the windows are consistent. So there's kind of consistent detail, parapet lines, or other defining features. And a requirement to match the scale of the neighboring building by stepping the structure down to the scale of the existing one. So you don't have, you know, a really
height disparities.
Yeah, exactly. This is what a plinth-like structure, that's what their point is there, to establishing a maximum grade difference between first street and first floor of new structures so that you don't have something that is like a building on a rock kind of thing. Pedestrian walkways, this is one where you may have a little bit of conversation. It asks for a 10-foot minimum setback that could be an extension of the public realm and sidewalk. It doesn't really specifically say how we do that. So there could be an argument that it should be the sidewalk or the sidewalk plus additional. And I think that's a good conversation for you to have and think really carefully about. It also asks that when ramps are necessary to meet a building entrance grade that is different from First Street, ramps should be incorporated into the design of the site to minimize the appearance of ramps. So just saying we don't want, you know, a massive concrete structure that's just kind of by itself without any kind of surrounding detail. In my staff report, I was thinking about the next steps here, and I think really what they are is that staff could update and codify the design standards and guidelines. That's probably the bigger job if we're, and it's something that could happen a little bit over time in terms of pictures and diagrams and things like that. But whatever the design standards that you might want to incorporate into that, we could probably get a document that would do that. And the other one would be the creation of a draft ordinance for your review, not necessary for your approval yet. But we do need to get that ordinance put together so it's kind of reflective of what you may want, if that is what you want to do. These steps would fully implement the desired outcome stated in the sub-area plan. And then this overlay district would become a legally enforceable zoning tool to guide future development in the First Street area. The updated design standards will also make sure that we get that compatibility in building form, materiality, and massing. So that is the direction of this staff report. We are just asking whether you are ready to bring forward a draft ordinance and a draft update to the design standards that you could continue working on, but it would be in the form of a ordinance like your typical, like you would typically see. I have a couple of questions that I was thinking about as I was writing this, and you may have more, so these are not the only ones. But first is, does the commission support moving forward with drafting an overlay district consistent with the recommendations of the 2025 sub-area plan? And I'd add anything else that you would like to add at this time. This is the appropriate time to do so. Does the commission support updating and codifying the design standards and guidelines as part of this work? And are there any really specific priorities or concerns you would like staff to consider as we begin to draft that language? And I think for us, what's really important at this moment is getting the direction from you about what you'd like that to be and not be, so that we can get to you a good draft of what this could look like, so you can see it in kind of land use language and terms. So thank you for allowing me to walk you through my staff report. We're available for any questions you may have, and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, John. That was comprehensive, and I appreciate that this was well put together, and I really understand what you're going for on this. Now would be the time for clarifying questions but keep in mind, we don't want to have an hour of clarifying questions, because we want to get to public comment and then come back to the full discussion here. But clarifying questions on this for the staff right now.
Yeah, I've got one to start with in terms of process. It seems like we finished the comp plan, and then we were pretty hot on this for a while, and then the trail went cold for a few months. What is the schedule we're chasing? When do we want to have this wrapped up?
I think what we've been trying to do with this is make sure that everybody has a good idea of what we're doing and how we're doing it and what the sub-area plan says and recommends, and that we've all had some time with the document. I think you all have had that now. And I think what I was trying to do tonight is give you the specific recommendations for this catalytic project number 2. What I would like to do is bring back a draft ordinance and see if we can get that, or I guess a draft ordinance and the design standards in the next month, so that we can have those documents ready for your review. And then I think that the next appropriate step would be approval, and that's probably the month after, unless there's direction that would indicate that it needs more work. But that would be, I think, in my mind, the next appropriate step.
Okay. Does it make sense? I imagine as you go through this, there's going to be 10 pretty heavy questions. They're going to take some discussion. Does it make sense to put a workshop together between now and then and thrash some of these things out?
I'm certainly open to that. I think that's really a question for you all, like if you'd like to do that.
Okay. Others?
Not sure if this is more appropriate for the continued discussion, but I was curious about the reasoning behind limiting I guess, the westernmost boundary of the sub-area plan, because there's a lot of like forested area to the west of like what's currently the industrial area. And I know that's either mountain residential or I think it's mountain residential. Is there any reason that we couldn't extend the boundary further to the west, because it is like forested area?
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask you a clarifying question to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
Are you talking about specifically the Wolf Tongue area in its entirety? Because that is identified on that map on page 27.
Yeah, I was actually talking about the area to the, so that's the area currently within the sub-area plan. I was talking about expanding it further to the west to include the currently open space-ish areas.
Who, the what? I didn't hear.
Yeah,
Close.
sorry. Yeah, and I don't.
So there's the Wolf Tongue area that's more or less open space. Not talking about the mine, I'm talking about the Frog Ponds area. Directly to the west of that, that's currently not included in the sub-area plan. It's it's of course private property. It all is. It's outside of the industrial area and it's mountain residential. But right now it's essentially open space with public trails, historically public trails going through it.
One thing I might note is that the geographic boundary there, that is all within the sub-area study area. But the geographic boundary that's specifically recommended is a little bit smaller than that. So it's really 2nd Street, 1st Street, Boulder Creek, and then Jackson Street, like that square. So it's a little bit of a smaller subset.
Okay.
But one of the really great benefits of an overlay district is it can incorporate different zone districts.
Right.
And I think that that is also a good question for Planning Commission if you'd like it to be a little more extensive. That is certainly something that could be done.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it seems that if your objective includes a lot of maximizing the creek, then that might make sense to expand it to include as much as the creek, because that's going to be, if that's a primary goal, then we should be addressing it. It would be more than just First and Second Street.
Yeah, I think that that's actually one of our biggest, let's just have,
Mhm.
once we get there,
Yeah.
discussion of the boundaries
Yeah, great.
is actually, a big part of what we need to work on. So I agree.
Yeah, great.
I might not disagree with where, but we certainly need to talk
Absolutely.
about the boundaries.
Yeah, great. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Further clarifying questions before we get to public comment?
Yeah, one more, John, on there's a lot of talking here about maximizing the outdoor space. Does that include like the space in front of stores for sales and things like that? The things that you now need a peddler's license for?
Yeah, I think that is something contemplated. And it specifically says we should get rid of SRUs for outdoor uses like that.
Right.
I think that's a question for you all, and there may be different categories of that, if you will. Like there's what might be needing a peddler's license. There might be something that needs a business license, like a temporary vending solution.
Mhm.
Excuse me. We have also, staff has had requests in the recent past to have outdoor businesses that would never be indoors at all. And that may be something different, like a permanent outdoor space. That might be something that you want to think about a little bit. So what the plan is trying to do is create a pedestrian area that really becomes the vibrant heart of our downtown, that encourages pedestrian scale architecture and pedestrian scale movement through the district.
Yep.
And so I think that's what they're going for. And a lot of, towns do things like they'll create like a common consumption area along the streetscape where you could carry a beverage with you within the boundary and things like that. And I think that that's what kind of the vibe that they're going for, kind of like Old Town Arvada, maybe.
Yeah. So would a recreation district or something like that be part of this discussion, this process?
I don't think it should be necessarily, but I think if we had that streetscape where that could happen safely, then that might be something that we'd want to bring forward in the future. But currently, I wouldn't really feel comfortable with that until we figure out kind of like what's happening along First Street.
Sure. Okay.
So something that could be looked at down the line, but right now, focusing on the overlay district that we're discussing tonight. Okay,
I have a question.
please answer.
Clarifying too then, so I'm not familiar with the 1916 design. Where's that reference, or what is that? Or where do we see it? That's the first I've heard of it.
It's referenced in the sub-area plan specifically. And I actually, when I was reviewing for this staff report, that's when I found that out. So I do not have the information on that, but the sub-area plan talks about that, those standards being the standards for just like kind of specific to that original town site, which I think is inclusive of Old Town. And I think that's where probably why they're not codified is because it does include residential property. But I think if you were to adopt them by reference within the ordinance, then it would be different.
Does anybody have a copy of them, or where do we see it?
Britt has.
Yeah, let me look through my stuff.
Send them out to us. This is a new one, yeah. 1916 design.
Exciting. I'd like to see that.
I just thought that maybe they took it from like that photograph of First Street or something. So here's your design.
Gosh, Roger, I would have thought you were still on the planning commission back.
I think
Well,
there
I
may have been
was, but I missed that meeting.
There may have been an effort at some point to create a historic district because it's designed as a historic district design standards. It's like verbatim what the state requires for a document like that. But I think whatever happened along the way, it was developed and then that was it.
Yeah, so I think going forward, it's not essential, but boy, that would be just a nice thing to see. Yeah,
Informational, yes.
as opposed to just quoting it with us having no idea what it is.
Okay. Other clarifying questions before we move to public comment? Okay, having heard no more clarifying questions, we'll open it up for public comment. At this time, if you're in the room or online and you would like to make a public comment regarding this agenda item, please let yourself be known. Give your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hey, Jim, I have a quick process question. This is Jesse Severs, 178 West 4th Street.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. Jesse, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering if there's any chance I could make public comment once the discussion gets started, because I don't necessarily have anything I want to say now, but sometimes the conversation makes me think of something.
You'd have to submit it, to us in an email or something, because the process is once we close public comment, we got to go on to the action item.
Okay, that's fine.
If,
I don't have anything to say at the moment. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
okay, thanks a lot. Ron?
Ron Mitchell, 380 South Jackson. I would hope that you would have some work sessions on this where the public could be involved. And my comment was almost the same that I made at the previous time I spoke, is that it's very complex. There's an awful lot there. And I believe that there's a need for input from the major property owners to be affected by this. Of course, I'm one of them.
Okay. Now, keep in mind that this was an 18-month process to get to this with lots of public engagement. I went to at least 3 or 4 events here to look at some of these design standards that, as referenced in the sub-area plan, the amount of engagement, but we will take that under consideration for an additional work session regarding this specifically. Thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Please make yourself known.
As a
Hi. Oh, sorry.
please go ahead.
Hi, it's Cameron again. So
Could you state your full name and address, please,
Cameron Beebe, and I own 305 Boulder Canyon Drive. So I'm trying to catch up because I was not involved in the 18-month process, and I didn't own property that would have been affected either until very recently. So it looks like I'm just trying to wrap my head around this First Street overlay. It looks like all of the setbacks and restrictions, except for the pitched roof, are stricter. Is that correct? And then a second question. So this overlay actually adds restrictions, additional restrictions on everything within the boundaries. And then the second question is 19 West First Street, because you keep talking about it as the First Street overlay. And if I'm looking at the map, it looks like it ends. I mean, First Street keeps going, but the current, so it's similar to the other question earlier. Why doesn't it continue to the west? And if it did, then it would also affect 19 West First Street, which is on First Street, which is a property that we were talking about flex zoning earlier, just for context. So those are my questions.
Okay, thank you, Cameron. Did you want to take that, John?
The map shows the suggested geographic boundary for the new overlay district. It is bounded by West 2nd Street on the north, Snyder Street on the east, Boulder Creek on the south, Jackson Street on the west. I put the specific recommendations from the sub-area plan that are the results of the community engagement process in the staff report, but the Planning Commission has the authority, if so desired, to change that boundary. I think that the core, if you go back to the vision statement that is made at the beginning of my staff report, it talks about why. And it says downtown Nederland is a place for locals and visitors to gather, shop, dine, and play together. Visitors remember Nederland is a distinctive place that has a unique sense of community and laid-back small mountain vibe. The architecture is a mix of old and new buildings that reflect the historic character and create an authentic space. Downtown is easy to access and inviting for people of all ages and abilities. Locally owned businesses thrive and make downtown Nederland a unique destination while also serving the daily needs of residents. People feel at one with nature, enjoying trails along the creek and lake, and taking in majestic mountain views. Its historic roots as a mountain town, a ski town, and music town are reflected through its architecture, public spaces, art, and festivals. If you look at the engagement work that is listed in my staff report and is also in the plan, and I'm sorry, I don't know
I'll find it for you. The page.
yeah, I think it's like 15. I'm not positive though, but the community engagement process was really focused on scale inside the CBD district, which is a little bit larger than that geographic boundary. But I think the core of the downtown, where we typically think of as where a lot of that commercial activity is occurring right now, is what the focus was. But that being said, it could be more. There's no reason that an overlay district couldn't be a little bigger, and that is within the. That's one of the reasons an overlay district exists, is to make it functional for a given space. But it's really not a. The vision statement is really, while trails are a part of that and connectivity and all that thing, it's not really like a park management plan. It's just saying that one of the reasons people visit Nederland is because of the beautiful place that it is and like having this connection to nature. And I think that that was kind of the goal of the drafters of this plan. But again, you guys have the, you can change how we would address that.
Oh, okay. The public engagement slide from the sub-area plan is page 15 in the plan, but it's actually page 37 in the packet, if you have the packet pulled up. But if you're looking on the bottom of the corner there in the sub-area plan, it's page 15, and it lists out all of the attendees and different engagement areas that we had related to the sub-area plan, which were plus, there was online surveys and different things like that. So that's the stuff that goes to that. Cameron, I think the other thing you asked was about whether or not it would be more restrictive in the overlay district, and that's a possibility. The proposals in here are a little bit more restrictive, but that's something we will discuss. None of that is decided yet. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Jim, I'm sorry. I left something out that I wanted to note. I pulled out the specific recommendations for Catalyst Project number 1, which is the creation of the First Street Overlay District. There are other Catalyst projects within the plan. And there's like, if you look at page 9 in the plan, and I'm sorry, I do not know what page it is in the packet, it details several different areas that there's recommendations for, including what we commonly know as the Wolf Tongue area or the industrial area of town. And then some stuff on 2nd Street that's actually not within the boundary we discussed past the roundabout, west of the roundabout. So one of the things I just wanted to note is that these catalyst projects are kind of divided by core area is essentially how they do it. So there's like a downtown core area. There is a North Gateway, downtown east and waterfront area, a West Gateway and Wolf Tongue area. And there are separate recommendations for each of those areas. My recommendations that I listed in this staff report are specific to the core CBD area in the geographic boundary I had mentioned. But again, we could bring forward an additional analysis of like the overall, all the catalytic projects in the plan. I just thought better to focus on the one that was critical to the conversation.
Kind of take that piece at a time.
We want to focus on number 2. That was the agenda, right?
That's for today.
Thanks for the clarification. And yeah, I think my confusion was that on the slide with the overlay that defines the overlay with the setbacks, it talks about the industrial and Wolf Tongue area. So.
Okay. Thanks, Cameron. Any other online people that would like to make public comment? Now would be the time before we close the public comment on this item. And for anybody who might be listening, this is not going to be the only time we're seeing this. We'll see this at least 2 more times and potentially have a work session since that was requested. We will discuss that. So anybody else have public comment on this item? Okay, having heard none, I'm going to close the public comment on this agenda item and bring it back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. Now's the time to bring up all these points you want to bring up, which I'm sure there's a lot. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Just a quick question as to the work session that was proposed. Are the public allowed to attend that session for further dialogue?
If scheduled, they would be. It's always open unless it was an executive session. It wouldn't be considered a work session then. But yes, I would usually have them right here in this room and let people know when it's going to be.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a foundational question. Did anybody do an economic study on, is there an economic study done as part of the downtown redevelopment plan that says what the downtown should be able to yield? How many square feet are required to produce that, or did we do any underlying economic study?
That is an implied recommendation in the plan. They talk about economic, hold on, let me just pull up I'm sorry.
Oh,
There are several objectives related to what you've just kind of noted. If you look on the plan, it's page 60, but objective 1 is really kind of assigned to the DDA, and it's to support and stabilize existing businesses, to continue to explore grant program through the DDA and other incentives to support existing businesses, support pathways to ownership for businesses that may want to purchase rather than lease their property, work to temporarily relocate businesses if redevelopment of their space is occurring, recruit new businesses, update policies to require, and then there's a affordable housing one there. But a plan like that is a pretty specific. We would probably have to have a separate plan to do that, but I think it's something that would be valuable to do for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are rules of thumb for what a restaurant requires, how much seating space, how much ADA for bathrooms and so on, how high ceilings need to be for retail, basic things like that. And it's pretty rule of thumb. But I think we really need to start from what does it take to run a viable business, and how many of those businesses do we feel we need, and then work around that. I think we can talk about citing all we want, but if we don't know what our objective is in terms of revenue, and I think foundationally, if somebody's going to put up the $250 million it's going to take to do this, it's got to pencil out. And I don't want to box ourselves in a corner because we made it too inflexible, or we didn't think about the basics of, what we think we need and how much square footage that involves. If I were developing this, that's where I'd start, before I would even start to talk to capital.
Mhm.
So that's a concern. And then before, as the meeting was getting started, we sort of talked about the shadow objective of nobody's view would be obstructed, but are we considering sunlight and mountain access? And is that within the scope of what we intend to accomplish here? Or is it an issue?
It's not recommended in the sub-area plan, although there are overlay districts that do take into account shade studies and things like that for SRUs. That is something that happens.
Okay. And then it sure seems to me that parking is all wrapped up in this, and when I look at this, it almost seems like you'd start with a parking structure that works with the grades that we've got, and then you put buildings on top of that. And if that's the case, does a long parking structure that has the appearance of different buildings, but that's a good deal wider than 200 feet? Is this going to be a problem? What happens below the ground?
I think those are good questions.
Okay, so I think it'll be in the scope of, as you're framing this, this is part of the discussion I think we're going to have.
I think we're going to need direction from you on that specific point. I think what we've done is present the sub-area plan that is the result of the community engagement project.
Yeah.
I think that is appropriate. I think what we need is direction from you on exactly how you want to proceed with the recommendations, or if you want to add recommendations. That's where that's what we need to move forward. And
Right.
so whether that's for a work session or any direction you might want to give tonight, that's where I think what we need I think that's what we just need right now.
Yeah, I just go around the table then. Is solving the parking issues are part of our purview? What do we all think? Is it, because it's gonna define what happens above ground?
The Catalyst project does say, just as one note, just remember, it does say it should eliminate general commercial parking requirements. And I know that's not exactly what you're talking about, but I just want to note that it does have that recommendation.
I wonder if it's our job to solve the development issues for the future owner or a person who's going to do it. I understand we're taking zoning in here, but if we get into the weeds on every single thing on whether or not the restaurant's viable, whether or not how we're going to do parking for it, that's really the owner of the property who's going to develop it that needs to do
Yeah,
that.
I'm thinking in terms of boxing ourselves in to where we put a set of rules in place that nobody can possibly make work, and then we get nothing.
Well, there's always an SRU process and a PUD process that will not
Yeah.
prevent that from happening.
It does explicitly say we should not allow changes to the base zoning once we create the overlay district. That's one of the recommendations of the plan.
Okay.
And so I think you're both, I think what I would point you to is that vision statement.
Mhm.
And I think what you have been asked to do by the community and through that engagement process is to design standards that preserve the character and spirit of Nederland. And within that vision statement, that's why I wanted to include it. It's some pretty strong statements about what people think is important about this place. And I think that what you're saying and like what the plan recommends, there's probably a happy medium there where we can do that. And a lot of it comes down to articulation. I think that's really the important thing to remember about this plan is that that's what it's asking for. It's asking for articulation so you see scope and scale of what downtown in a small mining town from the 1800s looks like. And I think like you raised some important points that you should look at. But what I'd point you to is if on the very first page of the sub-area plan, you see a picture of like maybe what downtown could look like. And it's different, but it's not unrecognizably different. I think that's what the community expressed is they want to see the Nederland that they love, I think is really what we're going for. But maybe like you said, how can we do that in a way that kind of threads that needle between development and character?
Another question I have right from the start is it talks about a mix of new and old buildings. I can't think of a single building worth keeping. They're just they're fly traps above and below ground. The systems they were a bunch of mining cabins that were dragged from elsewhere in the town and then called a business. The old Pioneer is 3 old cabins.
You know what I'd tell you about that is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And like, honestly, you can save, it really comes down to priorities of a property owner. And, you could talk about the PI is a really good example of that. That building is famous. What happened there is famous. It's never going to be gone, like what happened there in the past. But, and are there ways to save it? Yes, there are ways to save it. I've been involved of saving buildings that are in way worse condition than that. But it boils down to what the property owner can and can't do. And I think that's really the question that you're kind of raising. I think that's why there was a recommendation for historic preservation district. I have a feeling that we could probably create a historic preservation district. Currently, our historic preservation efforts are guided by Boulder, but we could become what's called a certified local government for historic preservation, which would give us more wherewithal to get grants and to help property owners address some of these issues. Because I do know, Town Hall is another perfect example of that, a building that was built for more of what was needed at the time rather than lasting 200 years. And so I think that there's a really important conversation that you need to have about that. Like what makes Nederland recognizable and special? And like, how do we make sure we preserve that? Kind of like a foot in the past, eye on the future. There's got to be changes. We all know that. But how do we make sure that Nederland remains what is important, like to people? Like, how do we do that in the future? And it may be that it's really thinking about the articulation again of buildings and thinking about what the scale. I mean, this is not a Victorian, like a Queen Anne Victorian downtown. Like that's not what it should be. It's an eclectic mining camp where people built what they needed so they could do the thing they needed to do right then. And I think like you all know what Nederland is and what makes it special and important. And I think that we can achieve goals where we get reasonable development, like you said, where it pencils, and also maintain the scale and character of especially that original 1916 town site. And maybe scale is the wrong word, but the character of that, the vision and the character of that.
Got it. Okay, so would you envision facades maybe, or do you, are you trying to preserve the Pioneer Inn as the Pioneer Inn?
I don't see that as my choice. I think
Right.
if there were incentives that could be offered that would make that possible, then yay, that's awesome. But maybe there's other treatments that could make it look like the Pioneer Inn or using original materials. There's a lot of things that people do that can maintain character. And I think like you see better and worse examples of that in the mountains. And I think you all probably have ideas of what those are in your head. I'm not, I really do believe beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And, you know, it's like looking at your own kid. You're going to think they're the most beautiful, you know, ever. And I think that's important to remember that, you know, people's hearts are wrapped up in these old buildings and what happened there. But that being said, I think that as you kind of navigate these spaces and look at these things, you know, we heard even Jesse was talking about that earlier. As a developer, he's trying to think about maximizing his earning potential. I think that, like you said, we can't expect development to happen if it's too difficult or too onerous. And one of the other things about catalytic project number 2 is it does ask to expedite and make as easy as possible development processes, which is something that Britt and I have been spending some time working on in affordable housing land, just to make sure those projects happen fast, but also just making sure our processes are streamlined for these things so that it is a predictable and not easy, but understandable development process so things can happen. And I think that's the other important piece of this is we need to be thinking about what people can develop, but that doesn't mean that you can't have any standards, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You can have reasonable standards. And maybe that's really where a work session comes in. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Is that you can have some of those conversations because these issues are not easy ones.
This is close to religion.
Yeah.
Discussed publicly. Yeah, in the end, nobody is going to put capital into something with the intention of losing money. And I think that we can get very prescriptive very quickly and end up with like the last comprehensive plan we did where we never built anything. And I just hope to God we don't do that again. Otherwise, this whole thing's a waste of time. People have to have buildings with enough function to make money, or they just won't do it. They have to make a living. And we've seen so many, every business that opens here, I cross my fingers and hope to God that they capitalize it properly and they'll be able to make it. That's all I got. We're at the beginning of framing this out. So what you need from us is enough direction to draft, right?
We would love to get, what I would like to do is have an ordinance that kind of like spells out what this looks like. I think I'm hearing maybe a general idea that a work session would be warranted where you could spend a little bit more time thinking about these things and talking about them. Work sessions are a little bit of a less formal environment too, where there's, you can invite conversation from different folks or whatever it is that you want to do. I think that's a reasonable thing. What I would say is that for Planning Commission, I know this is a big decision for you, how you would move forward. And what we really wanted to do is make sure, that sub-area plan has got a lot of things in it. I wanted to make sure you understood this catalytic project and why it was suggested and recommended. And then we can bring forward whatever you want here. I think what we want to do, I think to your point, is we want to make sure that there's developmental certainty about what's going to happen. And I think there's been a lot of questions about that over the last few years. And I would like to start implementing, the comp plan has other recommendations. There's other recommendations in the sub-area plan. I do want to make sure that we're just moving forward on these, but it should take the time it takes. We should not ramrod anything through. So if a work session is helpful, I think we could. I think my question would be, what is the goal of our work session and what would we just take this staff report and then like spend a little bit more time walking through each item and anything else that Planning Commission wanted to add, or would you have a different goal in mind for it? But within kind of that framework, I think, I want to make sure that you guys can put together something, whatever it is that you do that you're comfortable with and feel is supportive of the goals that you just kind of elucidated.
I think, let's see if other people feel the same way, but what would be really helpful is build a framework. And you certainly outline the things that we need to consider. And then write as much of it as you can where it appears we're in alignment, and where we're not, throw in 3 choices for discussion so that by the end of a work session, it's very much a steered discussion. And at the end of it, you come to some decisions that you can act on. Otherwise, I think a work session may not get us closer. And then you'll still be writing in the dark. I think you need some guidance.
Yeah, we would need very, very clear and specific direction on where you guys are.
Okay.
Let me ask a question here. Let's back up for a second, because we're starting to get into, I think, what would go into the overlay district and some of the requirements of it. But let's go to the first question. Does the commission support moving forward with drafting an overlay ordinance consistent with the recommendations in the 2025 sub-area plan? If there's anybody who has heartache with that or doesn't see that as a viable thing to go forward, now would be good for you to voice your opinion if you're just against an overlay district, and we can hear what your argument is now.
Easy question first.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you'll get your nods here.
Yes.
You're against the overlay
I
district?
am not against it.
Okay, that's what I asked for. If somebody is, if there's anybody who has a problem with going forward, asking staff to pursue this, that was recommended in the sub-area plan, now would be the time to make your information known within the planning commission here.
Well,
Good.
That's true, but you could be against it and still sit here and be a constructive voice in the whole process. So
You could, but I just wanted to just kind of get it,
Gotcha.
see where we were at. So we have, right now, can we get a nod of 4 to continue on with the overlay district and pursue that?
Go.
All right, we
Okay.
have our nod of 4. So that one thing down. Okay, now let's go back to you. I know you were queued up and ready to go. Please continue.
yeah, just opening comments. I mean, I agree with Tom. It's a very important thing, but it's at this point, there's just so many questions and so few of answers, or I can have 3 answers for every question. So it's very, very hard to get going. I guess Tom brought up parking. Well, that would be a good place to start. I feel, I mean, not feel, it's just a suggestion, just trying to have boundaries so we know where we're talking about.
Mhm.
So if we could even establish what is the overlay number 2, because there was questions raised there about where it should go. You outlined certainly some of them. There's a few other areas that we could do, but that might be a constructive way to start. Or at least to get something accomplished, that here's where it would be, so that when people are calling in and saying, I want you to do that, then you say, well, that, we're not talking about your block or your house or your lot. So that would be important. But yeah, an opening discussion, this whole night is just so positive for me, just because of the huge questions, and then you bring up, and then one of the questions would, well, how about outdoor sales, which is just just a basic question of our planning commission special review, or, special, SR, or not SR. So that's such a basic question compared to how do we save or not save, or how do we incorporate the Pioneer Inn into this whole big project, when there's also ideas of a huge other big, $30 million project. So right now, I just absolutely feel that every bit of the discussion and getting feedback from everywhere is important. So for me, I guess it was the boundaries. But yeah, I'm definitely struggling with a conversation about using steel, and what's that little sentence mean compared to, redeveloping an entire square block, which is a huge question. So those are kind of my opening comments, and I probably have confused it more than made it clear, but just so you understand that. uh,
So how do you feel about question number
We'll
2?
keep chipping away, I
Okay.
guess.
Go ahead, Linda. I can see you have something to add.
Well, I think with the issue of parking and stuff, that is something that we have discussed a lot, but with this project going forward, things change with that. So that's something that will evolve as we go through the process on where the parking, and if it's underground or how that works. So I think a lot of this is just accepting the overlay project and going forward from that point. Otherwise, we're getting into details that we can't answer right now. We don't know.
Well, I think we can use as much time as we have tonight to at least discuss the stuff that's in the aim and the viability of it. But I agree with you. We probably want to start with the low hanging fruit first. And when everyone's got a chance to comment, we'll come back probably to the second low hanging question is the boundary and talk about that. But
And another point I had on that, where it shows on the map, the Wolf Tongue area, is that incorporated with what Jesse, the property he has, where those properties are, the residential with that?
Yeah, it basically starts
So
right.
that would be
Yeah.
incorporated.
That
into
road that goes through the Wolf Tongue is not right away. That's all private. It's like a big
Private.
parcel.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's separated out, is just because it has different zoning, and right now it's the connection to the rest of the CBD is not immediately clear, but I think it could be, like we talked about.
Okay,
But
thank you.
John, you said Jackson, so they would not be in it.
Yeah, I think,
currently, as it's listed,
yeah, I think what they're really trying to do is focus on existing commercial areas. And I know that is, industrial is kind of commercial, but I think that was the general intent.
But if we stopped at Jackson, that's beyond the boundaries of number of Plan 2.
So the food pantry's in the district?
Yeah.
Okay, in the, good. So do you want to try for number 2?
Well, let's see if Trustee
Okay.
Sterling has some things to add. No? She's got, okay.
Yes, if you were asking my opinion, would I be in favor of an overlay district? The answer is yes. But in terms of the details and everything, that's the exciting part that I look forward from staff.
Okay, then yes, I agree, Tom. Let's go forward with the second piece that was the boundaries. And I want to be careful that we don't conflate what Jesse and Cameron were asking with what we're trying to do here. So, we shouldn't be trying to figure out how to solve his problem with this action item. This is completely separate.
These are process questions.
Yeah.
And we're looking at figure 11 with regard to the overlay district, correct, on page 48?
To go find it. Hold on.
8.
No, I don't think so. I think that we are actually looking at what page is it?
Sorry, if you look at page 24 in the plan, and I do not know which pages, but it's the existing zoning and proposed amendments. That is the boundary that most clearly delineates that geographic area. So you can see here,
It's page. Can you speak a little closer to your microphone there, please?
The actual proposed First Street overlay district is outlined in figure 11 on page 48 of 104.
yeah, the only difference is, and I guess it's really kind of a misnomer, but it talks about Boulder Creek being the boundary. And I think what it's trying to do is include the area of Chipeta Park as a part of the overlay, saying that it's an important part of our downtown. But you're correct.
So we're not talking about, if you look at the page number of the sub-area plan, which is on the bottom left-hand corner, it says 24. And then this actually says figure 10. And it's
Figure
page 46 in the packet. Is this not the sub-area plan?
Well, there's also there's a similar map on page 26.
Okay.
And of the plan itself, and it shows in the blue outline the overlay district.
I see. That actually makes it look like it goes all the way to the other side of Jackson.
So
I think it's to include, just to show the inclusion, because it said the activation of the creek. And so you have those trails on the south side of the creek for Chipeta Park. And that's, I think, what it's including there. But you're not going to have development. I guess, yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, so I feel like maybe there's some, well, obviously we started talking a little bit about trails and stuff, but what they're talking about is the First Street overlay. And all the design standards and everything they're talking about, the architectural stuff we're talking about, the central business is a business thing. It's not Chapita Park. That's a separate discussion, I feel. So I would just like to say that as he described it, Boulder Creek, Snyder to Jackson and Second Street. I mean, that's what this architectural, all the things we're talking about, at least 90% of what we discussed in the review, his statements is that area. So, I mean, we need to focus on, the downtown business core area. And it started out by being, a sub area for First Street. And, if you're going to do something for First Street, it makes no sense. It needs to be for the entire block. And I think also up to Jackson too. So, I mean, that makes sense along First. So as he.
Just let me clarify, are you recommending that we stick with the existing boundaries that's recommended in here that we have blocked off? Or are you asking for something
No, I'm
expanded?
not asking, well, I want to clarify. So, I mean, if you're saying that Snyder, you have to include, there's, the vacant lot that's being constructed and the tin shed. I mean, shouldn't that be, so on both sides of Snyder? And there's a little triangle there, Second Street, Snyder, that's it, that is commercial, which is the dentist, let's see whose office. It's the vets things there. So on the north side of Second Street, that should be included. I mean, why shouldn't it be?
Well, because I think then we now start pushing these.
But it's the commercial heart of the town.
Okay, well, so you're recommending
Well, no,
that it's
I'm
expanded?
saying let's have a discussion on where they should be. I don't want, but that's what I'm saying. I think those all make sense. That little triangle in Second and Snyder and yeah.
You're looking at a different map than us.
Well, I am, but it's very clear. I'm just looking.
But when you talk about something
Well,
that we
I can
can't
see
all
the
see.
streets. Well, I can see the streets very clearly. Well, I'm on page 25 of 104. It's a very clear map and everything is outlined as far as street numbers and everything. So it's just a page.
All right, so let me, well, right now, I think most of us are looking at page 46 of the packet that has the boundary outlined in
All
yellow,
right, well, let me go to that.
and you're looking at a closer.
46,
Yes.
I can do that. Because the streets aren't going to move in between maps. Oh, almost there, guys, sorry.
Why don't we all go to page 46 of the packet and or page 24 of the sub area plan, as it says in the bottom corner of it, the actual page.
46, okay.
And let's use this so we're all working off the same thing. And we're talking about right now the boundary. So first off, I want to reiterate what John said. This was what was recommended in the sub area plan, which we voted on and passed. There's no reason why we can't expand it or reduce it, but this was recommended from the sub area plan. So I would think we'd probably want good reason to expand it beyond that. So please, now that we're all looking at the same page, you're talking about trying to include the north side of Second Street and then on over into Salto and all that too. Is that what
Okay,
you were
but
proposing?
To clarify for you, sir, it's page 46 and it's the dark brown H. It's listed as H. The dark brown, does that make sense? The dark brown there?
I see it. Would point to what you're talking about. Point it on your computer right now, what you're talking
Right there well, yeah, I guess you could include the gas station if you wanted to. Why wouldn't you?
about. Well, that's what we're discussing right now.
So on page 46, the stuff that is the reddish brown.
The triangle there on Snyder Street and 119 and Second Street is what you're talking about, that triangle shaped property.
That whole area, yes. well, it's dark brown. And I guess you could probably say that, that one little section on Second and Snyder to the most north, that's definitely residential houses. There's no commercial there. That's actually, I think it's neighborhood commercial. So that from, Second Street to Snyder up to the highway.
This one right here.
Yes. No, this one right there. That's what I'm talking about now. Oh, right there. They're houses, they're residential buildings.
So tell me why you want to expand it beyond what's recommended here. That's what I'm not understanding. Why do you think it would be
Because
appropriate to?
why I'm recommending that is, well, if you're gonna, well, it needs to be, well, in his presentation. So what I'm expanding, he said Jackson to Snyder. So I'm expanding the one little triangle to the north of Second Street, Snyder. And if you want to include the gas station, why shouldn't you? The Quick Mart. Isn't that part of the central business district?
I don't think that's what we're attempting to try and do with the design standards we're talking about. I think it's mainly focused on First Street. And if we start expanding, in my opinion, if we start expanding the boundaries to incorporate more and more areas in possibly tighter regulation, then, I don't know. I don't know. My personal opinion is I'd rather go with what is recommended in here. And I think that the main focus of this, as was stated, was the first.
Expanded that whole area. And
If I could interject, maybe we can rephrase this as a question as to, like, so why does it stop at Snyder Street and not go over to include the tin shed and the
there you
the
go.
old garage?
Or north to
Right.
include the,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And I think that's a question for you, John.
That's why I've asked about I've said you could change the whole CBD zoning just to be a little bit different to kind of reflect the same goals. I think one of the things you see, if you look at this map, one of the nice things that shows you the CBD, and that would basically include all of it. So maybe if that's what you're thinking, that might be the more appropriate thing, is to just change the CBD zoning to kind of reflect whatever you guys like. I don't know why they left out the Tin Shed Net General property or the other ones on the other side of Snyder, but I think the idea was to really focus on the main commercial properties of town. And I think that this is the area that is typically associated with that. But this is one of the reasons why this is a recommendation from an outside expert, and then we bring it back to you guys to, noodle over.
Okay.
On figure 11, it shows it's the proposed First Street district. And that has a good guideline there to see what exactly on the First Street overlay would be.
It's the same as figure 10. It's just in yellow on figure 10.
Yeah,
And, they're both the same. They're exact same boundaries.
I guess that wasn't my point, that it was designated specifically for that. So why are we going, what are we discussing here? The whole district or just the First Street? I'm confused on why we want to add more to this on the First Street proposal. Are we including the whole map?
Not currently. Right now, we're discussing the recommended area that's outlined in there, but that's something that is up for discussion. And that's what I was trying to get to with Roger, is why he wanted to expand the boundary.
I guess I felt like I thought that was the presentation. I expanded a little bit, but I certainly, back to that same page again, page 46, there's that square that's outlined in yellow. How's that?
Yep.
I would be good with that.
Great.
But that's not what was described. But what's described in the letter is just First Street. But in the presentation, so I wanted to say which is which.
Okay. I see. You're trying for clarifying.
And I would argue, and I feel, and I agree though that, and Mike said it too, that, the two properties to the east, the tin shed and the vacant lot. aren't they part of that core area there? I mean, so if you want to just simplify it, adding those two properties, I think that would make sense.
I think what they may have been trying to do is along the lines of what is our main street, like not necessarily one street, but what is our actual main street that kind of functions that way for Netherland. But I agree with you. I think that those properties are kind of the end of that space. And so I think it's reasonable to include them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So rather than have it be, and I kind of thought maybe they were framing it by streets and the creek as the main way of making easy boundaries.
Probably. I think it's always good to have boundaries people can think of easily.
Yeah.
But I think you guys raised a good point that if we really want to think about it that way, that's kind of like where, if I was a visitor to our downtown, that's where I'd probably be like, oh, this is where I stop.
Okay. So that sounds like we still need further discussion on the boundaries. Was there other takes on whether or not we should expand beyond what is listed in the sub-area plan currently? Other people that have comments about that? And Roger, is your point that because there's a business there, because the tin shed business is there, that we ought to include it as part of that? I'm still trying to get to where it is, why you thought we ought to get them in.
Well, the whole description of First Street and a lot of the properties from First Street push to Second Street. So I'm not clarifying where the development is. Okay, I'll start over again. If you're going to talk about all the architectural discussion that's on First Street, down to Snyder.
Okay.
I think what this town needs and those same requirements and those same pictures need to be on Second Street from the roundabout down to Snyder. It should look the same. Right now, there's need for a huge improvement down Second Street. I mean,
It's opportunity.
there you go. That's a good word.
Can I support Roger's argument a little bit here? If you look at page 29 of the plan, and I am sorry, I'm not looking at the packet you guys are looking at, but on the actual plan, page numbered 29, figure 12, it shows you the proposed character areas and the area he's talking about. I mean, you see, it's really the CBD district, but the downtown core is really the area that we have been talking about here. And it is inclusive of the spaces you're talking about, Roger, and a little bit bigger, actually. So that could be a reasonable overlay district too. And I think really, when you look at my staff report, I listed that kind of downtown core principles. It's just, where do you want those to apply? And I think, that's the question.
I also would support considering the expansion toward more of the downtown core as an overlay, simply
51.
thinking about the 4th of July parades and some of the different events in town, which definitely do incorporate the Second Street activity space. So from that sense.
Okay. Well, this is what we're here to talk about tonight. Let's try and come up with some consensus on this. So right now I'm hearing at least two members that are saying that maybe we ought to consider expanding that boundary based on this figure. We're talking about the downtown core outline. Is that on figure 12? Is this more of the boundary we're talking about considering? I'm just trying to understand what we're saying.
Roger's little pie cut there on Snyder is still not included. That's downtown east, which I think is because reflecting the residential use there. But I just wanted to point that out. So that.
Yeah, I think you got two. Now you had two. Now you got three, I think.
Okay.
But you're right. I think you ought to also behind Salto include Perry's Shoe Shop and what's going to happen. Some of the other stuff that is currently got homes on it is ripe for to be part of a downtown core, I think, along Second Street. And I like the definition Roger used, or the boundaries Roger used for Second Street, how much Second Street to include.
I just got confused. Can
Yeah.
you?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think you're hearing for a slightly more expansive boundary than what they proposed there. And I think it extends a little bit further east than they proposed in that diagram. But none of these are questions before the commission that we have to decide tonight,
No, that's
but
true.
you do need some guidance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say that I think I understand what you're looking for. And what I could do, if we're going to have a bigger conversation, is bring a couple alternatives where we can try to see what that would look like. But I think I understand what you guys are looking for. So are you comfortable with me showing you an alternative boundary? I mean, we could always keep this one as like, oh, that one's better if it is, but
I think you take that map and do some dotted lines to incorporate some of the things you heard here tonight. Does that make sense?
yes, sir.
Okay.
If you guys go back to page 46 of the packet, because that's all I have available to me right now is the packet. So just so we're all looking at the same thing,
I think we
I'm
can give them instructions tonight. I agree with you.
I'm asking about, so are we talking about the two parcels that are listed under high density residential that are brown there, which would be Salto and Snyder's Garage, and then going across north and basically encompassing in the other high density residential properties, the triangle shaped, the gas station, and then the two properties north of Second Street? Or are we talking about going all the way to Third Street? That's where I'm wondering.
Yeah, everybody should go to page
Yeah,
46.
we're on the same page. Oh, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, page 46 is actually,
Just so we're all looking at the same,
yeah,
same thing is what I'm trying to get to.
46 of 104.
Yep. And so,
And actually the vast majority of it's in that yellow rectangle with the addition of the two lots. And if we want to talk about, like Tom started to say, the two lots to the north on Snyder and then the triangle, and then there's two lots there.
yeah. And I'm just trying to clarify with Tom, is that kind of what you were talking about? Or were you talking about going even further to the east onto?
No.
No, that was it. Okay.
The north side of,
I understand what you're looking for.
should I make it more
No.
complicated?
Please don't.
Well,
We'll draw a
do we
pretty
want
picture.
to, okay, a question of, should we enter into the question, which is the vacant lot, parking lot, which, part of the,
The Snyder's
could
Garage.
be the south of Sider's Garage, which could be the, the property where the bridge will be someday.
That's one possibility.
Should
Yeah.
that be incorporated too in it? It's
Bridge-
just a vacant lot right now.
Yeah, but
Or it's a parking
do we see, do we see commercial development going on there? I mean, you laid out very clearly what the objectives of what we're supposed to do with this sub area plan is a vacant lot where future bridge might go, part of a commercial district. Essentially, the question I think you're asking, Roger.
Yeah,
right?
well, it is commercial. We zoned it commercial.
Right, yeah. How do people feel? I've got my opinion.
Let's hear your opinion.
I agree with Roger, it probably should be included.
The lot itself, because then that's not a parallel, just coming straight down from the two lots that are to the east. So you're talking about encompassing that whole larger lot that's to the south there of First Street, just to the east of the boundary?
Is that?
Yeah, yeah,
Is that-
yeah, the parking lot.
Great.
It is commercially zoned, that space.
And I actually was in favor of it. I just was saying it's just because it's all part of that whole discussion, the bridge and everything.
I guess we're trying to come up with design standards for a commercial district. Do you envision downtown commercial development extending into that parking lot? I suspect not.
I suspect not, right? That's good
Yeah.
discussion. And the proposal is for it to be a street, hopefully, maybe. So I'm totally good with it, just staying out, just doing the two lots, the vacant lot and the Saltos lot.
Virtual high five.
Okay.
So we're leaving it out for now?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so just so to clarify for my own sake, as we're all still looking at the same map here, we're looking at extending the two, potentially, or seeing a plan that has some dotted lines with the district that would include the Snyder Garage property, the tin shed, and also the basically three, the triangle shape, high density residential to the north, and the two that would be to the north of the tin shed there. And those,
Or,
so
yes, and east of Snyder, right?
it's hard for people online to see what we're talking about, but you're talking about all of these, right?
Right.
Okay. I just want to be sure we're on the same page.
Okay, let's tie it down, get a nod. Get your nod and see if we were in alignment.
Are we in agreement that we should have that come back to us as a possibility of expanding the overlay district zone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I
Well
agree.
done.
All
Okay,
right.
you have,
Well, we're making some progress.
Tangential but
So we
related
gotta,
question.
so we
Is
have to
there
climb Mount Everest and we just laced up our shoes.
yeah.
tangential but
skiing
related
now.
question? Is there any way that we can get like screen sharing so that we can be talking about the same thing and point at things? Yeah. Yeah, great. But we, not right now. So,
It's certainly when we do,
yes.
it sounds
That would
like
be
we're heading
awesome.
towards a work session. That would be good to be able to have something pulled up that we could all be looking
Fantastic.
at the same thing.
I think question 2 on our, is a layup, probably as much as question 1, but let's take a look at it.
Okay, yeah, and again, what we're trying to do is get through some of the easier things before we start talking about height and setbacks and all that stuff, which will be more comprehensive. So question 2 was, does the commission support updating and codifying the CBD design standards and guidelines as part of this effort, which would be only in the overlay district, not the entire CBD, but this would be updating the design standards and guidelines as part of this effort within the overlay district. Are we in agreement with that? I see 2 nods, 3 nods, 4 nods. Okay, I nod too. So we are in agreement with that. So question 2 is a yes. Before we start getting into additional, we'll just cruise along with the questions. Is there specific priorities? And it sounds like there are a couple.
Can I ask you, what,
Go-
do you know what page of that is on?
It is on, what was it?
It's page 8 of the AIM, or it's the AIM.
Eight, okay.
Yeah,
It's the.
Cause I'm having, I do much better on my reading with you.
Yeah, it's
So
the
you gotta
bottom.
print this stuff out, buddy. That's what
Well, no, I had it, no, I rolled through.
I'm
with
sorry.
his
It was just teasing.
Presentation, but then we
Mhm.
got down to 46.
No problem. So on page 3, or on number 3, questions before the commission, are there specific priorities or concerns? We nodded that number 2 and 1, yes, we agree to that. That the commission would like staff to consider as we prepare draft language. We've already heard one of those priorities, which was to look at expanding the boundary. Are there other, and we're going to take a break in about 3 minutes, so can keep that in mind. Are there other priorities that commissioners have or our trustee liaison that they would like to express for the staff to look at?
I'd put pedestrian access up real high.
Okay, pedestrian access. Can you expand on that a little bit?
It's really easy to walk. I don't feel like I'm going to get mowed down by a car or backed over with somebody backing out, or I have to go into the street to stay safe. That I can move with more than one other person down the street and not be in danger.
Okay, that's very good and specific. Thank you. So the idea of whether or not we would maybe, they've talked about for festivals, possibly closing off First Street for ideas, but also the idea that our sidewalks are so tight that it's difficult to move around down there safely.
Correct. Yeah, I want it to be inviting and safe.
Okay, good. That's a good priority. Other priorities?
Impacts on existing businesses. Of course, one of the things that mentioned marijuana restrictions. And I had some questions about why that's necessary, but I know that there are a couple of marijuana retail businesses there. And if that was limited within the First Street district, just want to be conscientious of that.
just, I know you probably already know this, I'm just saying it just for the record, basically, but we wouldn't prohibit, things would be grandfathered under their current rules. It would just be new businesses, and that was just out of that engagement work on page 17. But that's a really good, I think that's a really
Yeah.
good topic.
Yeah, it was a specific instance for a larger topic.
And I believe that through the engagement, the idea was to make that much more of a family-friendly kind of area for people to travel around in and feel happy with their kids and not really have 4 Bearwater businesses right there where they would have access to it. I think that was where the public engagement was going with that. And to limit that, especially on that First Street corridor there, to make that, not adult oriented type businesses.
We've also got state law that covers a lot of it on outdoor consumption in public areas.
Yes.
But we're on 3 and it's the high priority.
Hold that thought. It's 8 o'clock. Let's take 5 minutes for a break and let's pick it back up 5 minutes from now at 5 after 8, as it says on that clock right there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Priorities.
Okay, let's bring the meeting back for our continued discussion of the overlay district. And so again, I always like to get the low-hanging fruit out of the way. What I sounded like to me was that we were pretty much in consensus with the idea that, or at least I shouldn't say that. It sounded like a work session was going to be necessary. Do we have a nod that we want to try and schedule a work session between now and the next planning commission meeting?
Nod.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So at that time, and I asked Britt to kind of look ahead and see what would work. I'm going to tell you that I don't really think on a topic that is this dense, and as we start getting into the details and setbacks and all that stuff, that we probably want to do more than just plan for an hour before our next meeting. So would we be available for an off Wednesday or Thursday to be able to come in for maybe as much as 2 hours for a longer meeting to give this good discussion?
I would say, as a principal, yes. What is on our docket, say over the next 90 days that's gonna take precedence, or that we're gonna have to put some time on besides this?
Let's see here. We will have to do a zoning map update, but I don't expect that to be much.
3 Mile Plan too.
Huh?
3 Mile Plan.
3 Mile Plan will come back up.
Mhm.
I don't know when we're gonna need to start discussing this, because there's still issues going on with the state, but eventually start discussing that ADU language again. That's gonna
Mhm.
just let what's coming from the state, what issues are probably gonna be a really good update to be really attentive to,
Mhm.
and have a pretty good discussion. I feel like those are the main,
This flex zone idea. If it's
yeah,
a
and then the
separate
flex zone
conversation.
idea
Okay.
are our main, like,
Right.
would there rather not
And
be.
then
We also
there's-
may need to talk about, there may be potential elements they need to talk about for a fast track, but I'm not sure for the Prop 123.
Yep.
then I think we better put our attention to this pretty quick, because the docket's gonna get full in the third quarter
Yeah.
and the fourth.
Yeah, and I expect some probably maybe land use applications.
Okay.
Is there, I hate to put you on the spot right now in an open meeting, but if we can get this settled, this would be good, because I agree that we do need to do a work session. Is there a date that works for the staff between now and next planning commission meeting that we could look at real quick at our calendar and see if that's going to work for the members here?
So the next planning commission meeting is the 27th, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, do we want to do it the 20th?
Well, I'm going to let the staff tell me what works best for them.
It's also Jennifer too.
Yeah. Does she need to be at a work session?
No, I guess she doesn't really need to be at a work session for sure.
We could always summarize if we
Yeah.
need to for her.
I'm
The
not
20th,
available that 20th, but the week before I could.
We have consortium of cities on the 20th as well.
Okay. Do we,
Wait.
does it have to be a Wednesday?
It doesn't have to be. I'm just,
It
you tell
doesn't-
us what date.
Yeah,
works
I
best
would
for
say Monday nights and Thursday nights starting the 11th. I have academy at night.
Oh,
So I can't attend those nights. It's okay if it
Dr. Cog Academy or Firefighting Academy?
firefighting academy.
Okay.
I will be officially Fire One certified by the end of the year. So I'll be so many hats for this town.
Well, and you can spray across the entire zone with a hose.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh,
I'll be your
okay.
backup.
Let's come back to
Okay, so
Okay.
you're
Tuesday, August 12th.
Tuesday, August.
Tuesdays don't work because they have BOT meetings.
Yeah, I like to keep Tuesdays open for Board of Trustees.
And
So
so
Monday and Thursdays are up for you in August.
unless we go the 7th, you said, right? And it's-
No, that starts on the 11th. So if we wanted to do a quick turnaround, I could make something work.
Wow, could you pull it off that fast? The 7th?
For either the 6th or the 7th, would either of those dates work?
Or the 13th.
Or a night that the BOT isn't meeting, so Tuesday, the 12th.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fine with that, John, and we don't think anything's gonna
Yeah,
pop
I
up.
think really largely, I don't know that the aim needs to be updated dramatically. It probably needs an addended document that just makes it a little easier to follow through each of the decision choices here.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we could probably do like the 12th. I don't like the 7th. I don't think I can finish it by the 7th.
Fair enough. You think you can do the 12th?
Yeah.
That works for me. How about other people?
What was the 13th not in consideration?
13th's fine too.
Because
for
I
me.
thought you'd said that you'd prefer not to have it on Tuesdays if you could.
DDA meets on the 13th.
But
Oh,
that-
DDA is
Oh,
13.
okay. Boy, we're just.
That
loading
doesn't
up
mean
with
you
meetings.
can't
There's
use it.
no BOT meeting on the 12th?
No.
Okay.
It could also, the
We
Thursday.
could also do it at like the library or something if we need to.
I just am required to be at both.
Oh,
those
yeah, I
meetings,
forgot, I
but-
forgot. Yeah.
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 The
Well,
library's
the
up-
12th sounds like that. How's that look for the planning commission members?
Yes, for me. No, Roger? What,
That's okay. You gotta go to class.
Are you kidding me? So we're gonna do the work session, come up with all what we think is good, and then you're gonna come back and tell us everything
we remember,
afterwards?
we remember how you felt last December when
Is
you went.
there another date, Roger, that looks good for you?
Turn your microphone on and tell us if there's a date that works for you, Roger. Look at the calendar.
Another date, perhaps?
Oh, because the 12th, the 13th doesn't work for you, yeah?
Well,
Okay.
How about Tuesday? How about Wednesday, the 20th,
Well, I-
August 20th?
I can, after the 18th, I think I'm back on the 18th, so the week after that. But, I mean, you have Tim, I mean, we're not gonna have a day we're all gonna be here.
That's true, but you usually have the most to contribute
I
to
do.
these discussions. Are you kidding me?
Afterwards, if you're not there, then we
Alright.
have to go revisit stuff.
All right.
No, Jim? Tim?
We want to get you involved. You have the most knowledge and experience here. So will the 20th, is that a date that possibly works for the staff?
I have to be at Consortium of Cities that night.
So that doesn't work.
And I think Elizabeth had said that week that also is not good. Okay.
That week, the 18th or the 19th, we have BOT. 20th, I have the consortium. The 21st is ProSab. So the 22nd, we could do the 18th or the 22nd that week.
So it's Monday or Friday.
And or something like this also could be virtual that you would tap in for.
And the Rogue River.
Oh,
So you don't have access
So
to,
that actually don't even, that's one of their big talks, that you won't have a phone.
okay.
You're in the Rogue
I
River.
can do the
wilderness area.
18th or the 22nd. The 22nd is especially good.
okay.
Be the first Friday session we'd ever done, I think.
FAC? Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
So does that work for both John and
Yeah, Monday I'll just have to do virtual so I can attend this and class.
were we just talking about the 22nd?
yeah.
Yeah, the
22nd.
22nd I can do. I'll be here. and
I
I'll
think
attend.
we're getting there.
I
John-
might
John,
be
does the
able to work
22nd
on the
work for you?
22nd. The 18th would
We can make
be
it work.
great.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's just that week is a busy week for the town. So, but I think we got to fit this in before the meeting and that seems like.
Yeah. So if we did the 22nd, then the 27th, refinements would be done and we might be able to get a lot closer to the finish line.
Yeah, you're not gonna have a staff report for the 27th that's reflective
live
of
with
that
that.
meeting because
Yeah.
it's past the deadline. That's the only problem.
Yeah, because I have to get the packet out on the 22nd.
But you would remember what you talked about. That would be,
It's very helpful.
yeah.
Just begging the question, does it have to be before the next planning commission meeting?
Not
Big
really.
run,
That's a
I
good
think,
point.
maybe.
You know, because the thing is that if we're gonna do that, you kind of want to have an ordinance that's reflective of those changes. I think you'd want to see that.
Right. And so I'm just devil's advocate asking whether or not we really need to push for a date before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of just going heads down, getting this done, because we got a lot of other stuff that's unrelated after this on our docket.
Part of it is staff capacity, because we know that you guys have a lot of things
Right.
that you're juggling right now. I hear what you're saying, Tom, but I also think that that does give a little more lead time. It sounded, what John was saying was that you got a lot of stuff coming up here yet. Is there a date that would work in early September, like really quickly after our next August meeting, like something in the next 2 weeks of September for the staff? We're focusing on the staff first because they have to be here. Everybody else will come in after they say what works for them. Just wait a second. We're going to let the staff say, and then we're going to say what works for us.
That, the third could work. It's
Wednesday
a
the third?
holiday, that's a holiday week, just to make sure everybody knows, like, if you have plans.
Yeah.
Labor Day weekend, yep.
I can come, I will be on vacation, but I could come back by that night. I
we're not looking
get
to
to
try and
use
do
my
that.
PTO, so I had planned it when I'm off academy and work.
How about the 10th? That's a good question.
There's no BOT week. That's DDA again, the 10th, but there is no BOT meeting on the 9th. So the 8th and 9th, actually that week is pretty free other than the 10th.
September 8th and 9th, either one of those days.
Yeah, or the 11th or the
the-
12th.
And you can't do Mondays, is that right, Brett?
Monday, Thursdays.
Okay. So 9th or the 12th.
We can also, we want Britt here, but like if we need to catch her up, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can, yeah, I was gonna say Wednesday, I would either be driving back or back, so I could also attend virtually and still be very involved. I plan on going to Oregon.
You know what I don't want to do is ask our already very overworked staff to do
It's
more work.
totally fine.
while
I'll
they
be
are
com-
on
I'll
the-
be coming back and have to prep, so it's not a big deal. I really promise.
What date was that, Brett?
The 3rd, I could definitely make that work. I'm more than happy to.
What,
Could
it comes
can
down
I
to you,
chime
John.
in?
Yes,
Go.
please.
Just a thought. What if you did your work session on August 27th, your normal planning commission meeting night? You could break that, start your work session at 6 and then have your meeting start a little bit later or something like that.
Yeah, I think we could do that. I don't know that there's we would have the option of having a regular meeting after that, but I don't know if there's anything else we need to absolutely have to get done that night, is there?
No, we could.
Yeah.
We could just do it as a discussion item at that meeting or just call it a work session so you have some
Yeah.
flexibility on.
I like that. Let's just, yeah,
Great.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Great insight there, Attorney Madsen. Yeah, it's probably not as big as you think.
So we'll change the regular meeting into a work, I guess.
So why
We'll
don't
just
we,
add a
Appropriate.
special meeting.
Special work session or something like that.
and 6 o'clock is still what we're looking for? Try not to get here at 5. We want to get here at 6.
I
couldn't
could
make
be
it any
here
earlier.
anytime, but others have more constraints.
Can you
I
tell us
do.
what's on the agenda for next month? Do you
Yeah,
have the-
currently we have this item again. The zoning map update, which can always be pushed. I had add the industrial flex zone alternatives.
Okay.
And then ADU, which I think we should push anyways.
Okay. Well, I would say that maybe was a great, something I hadn't thought of. That was a great insight there. So maybe 6 to 8, we can pencil in as the work session, and then we'll start the regular meeting at 8 and carry on with the other issues you have on that. And that allows us the flexibility of having the public to be able to sit at the tables with us and talk with us. The only issue that'll be a bit of a challenge is the setup of the room, because when we've done work sessions before, it hasn't been in this configuration, but I'm sure we can figure it out.
Yeah, you guys just let me know and I can get with Kurt. I mean, we could essentially set it up the same as a work session and just make sure we have microphones present for that or something. We could use the owl,
Okay.
so that way we don't have to do this big of a setup.
All right. I thought that was going to be the low hanging fruit too. Okay. So are we in agreement that just on our next plan, we'll do the work session then? We won't have a separate date. And if
Yeah.
we can always have another work session after that if it's required, but I like that idea too.
Good.
What do you think, Lyndon? Yep. Getting the thumbs up? Yep. All right. All right. That's settled.
Question number 3.
Yeah. Well, now I think it's going back to specific priorities and concerns the commission would like staff to consider as we continue on with that. We've got a few of the things nailed down, but if there's some things we talked about, safety and walkability on First Street. I forgot the other item. What was the other one? Somebody asked something else.
I had mentioned parking, but
Parking, yeah.
yeah, I didn't put it in my, I think parking is central, or getting clear on parking, because that'll dictate some design issues. A question with the possible acquisition of Eldora, do we need a hotel in our downtown district?
I don't know that it's our role to
Right.
evaluate the economic viability of businesses or not when we're looking at the zoning, but maybe it is. You tell me, John.
I would articulate that Eldora is operating just fine without thinking about some of those things. And so our main objective is to make sure the acquisition happens. So
Anything to add?
I agree. I think that's the important point is, there's a lot of things that could happen in the future, but right now it's just going to operate.
Right. Yeah, we have, I like the idea. I don't know if I'd make the, do or die, priority, but I like the idea of outdoor dining. But I think that may be going way below the surface of what we're being asked to do here. And I don't know if there were any, I think that's up to an operator to decide what they want to do.
There is a question that I had in my staff report about that
Yeah.
I'm asking if this is the appropriate question to pose, but 10-foot, there's the 10-foot sidewalk, and it's kind of a little ambiguous in the plan about whether there should be clear spaces, typically what you would call that maybe beyond the sidewalk where that cafe space could happen, so that you still have a walkable pathway, and then you have that opportunity for the dining area.
Yeah.
So is that question the one that you're thinking about, or is it a different question?
It's what I'm thinking about. It's not one I'm ready to, since we're supposed to give you priorities.
Okay.
It's one that that's a nice to have as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Well, and I'll bring this up now because I had it in my notes. I thought somebody else might mention it, but we haven't got there yet. One of the things that when we talk about the yard and bulk table, and we have setbacks of 10 feet proposed in the overlay district where it's 0 right now. One of the questions that I asked John during our pre-meeting was, does that start at the street or does that start at the edge of the sidewalk? And I'll let John give you the answer that he gave me.
I think it depends on how you want it to be. That kind of gets to this clear space argument too. Property lines downtown are confusing, and I think that's fair to say. Like, they're just old, and we have things that are encroaching into the right of way already. So that's probably one of the big questions that we really want to think about, is how we think about sidewalks and clear space. And I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you, but I think the joke is that the co-op cash register is in the street. So I think that that's something, obviously we're not moving the co-op. And so I think we need to be careful about how we make those, to your point about making sure that businesses remain viable where they are and all that kind of thing.
Great.
And I thought that, you talked about the need for some additional surveying to clarify where those lines were, at a later date.
I think that there's any project where we start working on that thing, like where the public spaces and the private spaces, we're going to want to have really good survey data. And some of that exists. They did some of that high level work already, but this is kind of like, I think we're going to have to work with the context of what we have and really think about what that means for us. And I think that the challenge for us is that buildings pre-exist any code that's been written. So we just got to really think about what's there, how we make sure that stays resilient, kind of like the framework in the comp plan. And then, not that every code should be exactly to that, but we just I think we should be thinking about the uses and what's needed to accomplish the goals of that vision or whatever. I know that's not a great answer. I'm sorry, but
No, it's what we need. And I think, and I agree that if you guys want to have a good idea, look at the very front page of the sub-area plan where it has that nice rendering of some spaces and people coming in, and it kind of shows the businesses having a little bit of a, I don't know what the word would be, alcove that comes in towards the businesses that allows for additional room. So essentially it's not basically, we're jamming the building right up to the sidewalk. And those are some of the things that we need to think about for next month as we start coming in for the work session. Those are going to be the things we're going to discuss and try to codify in this. And it will be good to have the public be able to be part of that and give their opinions on it as well. And I will tell you, for those that are listening online or come back and listen to this later, there's been a lot of public engagement in this, and it's listed in the plan. There was 18 months. And so a lot of folks come in after a fact and they say, hey, I didn't have my say. Well, you missed your chance. Now's the chance. It's coming in. It's going to be the work session. So spread the word. If you want to have your say so, come next month on the 26th and come for the work session. I'm sorry, 27th, come for the work session and let your opinions be known. Because what doesn't help is people getting up in arms and bringing the torches after the stuff is passed when the project is starting to get underway.
I'd like to make a comment, Jim. So I don't disagree. I understand what you're saying, but that picture, you could also interpret that picture that there is no street, it's a walkway, and maybe that general space is actually in the town property. So I was gonna just say that as far as we do setbacks, I think we actually need to look, that's a good question, but we need to look at, is it across the board setbacks, or should there be, let's say, a zero setback, but then also dedicated spaces for those types of activities? So again, you want some of that stuff back and forth, but that picture there, you know, it's not even a street, it's a walkway. So maybe those are public areas.
Well, it looks
So
like
we
you
have
closed
to-
that off.
we have to
Farmers
work that.
market.
This
Yeah.
is a picture up here that's a summary of the zoning changes, and these are conceptual, the purple buildings especially. But I think it's illustrative, this downtown core, of what like might happen with some of these changes.
What page on the packet are you in on that?
This is page 10 of the thing. So it's the summary of recommendations for downtown core, figure 5. And you can see here, there's some of the things from the multimodal plan, like specifically around the roundabout too. But then you see these buildings that address the street. This is a flexible streetscape here, where it can be easily converted between a pedestrian area and a driving area. And I'll tell you, I do have experience creating that kind of structure, and it does work relatively well for us, the community that has seasonal business needs. And then you can see this additional parking that's contemplated, and obviously some of this is not controlled by the town, but this address of the creek here, like the plaza down here, and just some of this work that's been done. And this is just like fully conceptual, nothing represents any actual proposal or anything like that, but just an idea of like kind of the thoughts that went into the creating that downtown core idea.
And that was figure 5, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at page, let's see, what page is it in the packet here? 32, page 32 in the packet. Thank you. Appreciate that assist. And so figure 5, page 32 of the packet, or page 12 of the actual sub-area plan, even though it lists number page 10 on the plan there. Okay, so you're talking about there, as we zoom in, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to reference what you were saying as you're saying it.
Sorry, Jim. This is like just a map of the recommendations that are made for the downtown core. So not all of this is the zoning, but this is kind of what artist conceptual, like high level conceptual, like what does it look like if we actually put these changes into place? So you can see kind of the scale of some of the things they're talking about. Obviously, some of these things require a lot of work and thought and private development and the whole bit, but just some of the ways that the changes might be enacted as future development happens. And I think also to Tom's point, this is so high level conceptual, there's probably more thought that needs to go into like how this would be accomplished, but this is kind of like, I'd say the vibe of what they were going for based on what the plans say.
Okay. And what a possible future development might look like, the buildings in pink there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like the use of public space that they have shown in there, in between the buildings, and that's pretty nice. But again, that'll all be subject to what the owner, the developer decides that they're going to bring forward. Okay. Okay. Are we to a point where we've exhausted as much as we can talk about tonight, or is there other things we want to discuss tonight on this?
Yeah, if there's any other priorities, let's get them out now.
I had no priorities. It was just the small little things, which we'll discuss: building height, outdoor sales, thing like that. So
Mhm.
just a general, I'm in line with everything else, really. It was just trying to decide what were the boundaries.
Yeah. And would outdoor sales actually fall into, I thought we were mainly focusing on design standards and
It's
yard and wall.
it's space. It's how do we
Space,
want to
okay.
design space?
Yeah, and it's use as well, like so the use table.
Okay.
It's saying that what it's saying is that people love the farmers market, and that's part of the fabric of Nederland, is that kind of vending that happens, informal vending, and to try to find a way to allow it is good, because our current practice is not could be better.
Well, and again, going back to that rendering on the front page of the downtown Sudbury plan, it says right there, farmer's market today. And I think the idea being, let's try and get it out of, the little corner of the parking lots that it's in right now, and get it more to where the central part of town is, so that the people are actually able to go to the businesses, as opposed to just hang out where the bands and the little stands are. But lots more to discuss, certainly. Other priorities before we move on to the next item, staff report.
I guess I go, John, are you getting what you need?
I am, and I hope you got what you needed from me. I'm wanting to present this in a way that is digestible for you. So if you have things you'd like me to do differently as we move forward, I'm happy to do that. I know pictures are always helpful in presentations, but we just need to manage that workload, I think. So
Yeah.
any feedback you have about that, we're happy to take.
Good. Okay, and the dates, the dates work. I think we got we've carved out work time.
Yep, and I think we should be, I'm hoping that you guys are feeling like after a work session like that, we should be pretty close to having an actionable, or the ability to at least write that draft, which is what we're really after, so.
Thank you. And the only thing I would add is, from a BOT perspective, is we've done a lot of these studies recently. And so John just is making sure that multimodal is incorporated. I know we had talked about the traffic circle, but other elements of that, if there's anything that we can pull from the housing study, and then, anything else, this is an opportunity to start to pull all those studies together. So that's the only thing I would add.
Okay. And I am remiss, because I should have done this at the beginning of our discussion, but I totally forgot that Steve, who wasn't able to be here tonight, had submitted some comments that he was hoping would get read. Let's see if Britt can read those real quick, just so we hear his comments, and then we'll move on to the staff reports.
Yep. So overall, this is his quotes. Overall, I'm in support to move forward with drafting an overlay district ordinance, as well as updating and codifying the CBD design standards and guidelines. Few comments. Regarding the overlay boundary, I recommend both First and Second Street be included, as many of the lots on First Street, but on Second Street. So it makes sense to combine them into an overlay district. Plus, a further development may expand the downtown area. Second Street will already be included in the overlay district for planning purposes. Regarding the recent passage of Colorado HB 24-1152, it is unclear how this will impact the setbacks in the overlay district, ? More discussion and clarification on this are needed, at least from a legal perspective. Regarding the yard and bulk table for the proposed overlay district, the setbacks generally look good, but one question is, are the current sidewalks on First Street encroaching on the street, or are they already part of the setback? If the sidewalks are on town property street, will any new or replacement sidewalks be a part of the 10-foot property setback? Regarding the building height, I'm still on the fence with this one, but I'm comfortable with unilaterally increasing the building height beyond existing code, unless a further study of shading for snow melt and design standards be done, maybe as part of a PUD on a case-by-case basis. This should include additional roof structures such as pitched roofs or solar panels, etc. For aesthetic purposes. And I thought the third floor setback was originally designated for the second floor. Has this changed? Also, regarding flat roofs, many engineers discourage flat roofs due to water mitigation, snow loading, and leaking. As one roofing engineer told me, it's not the matter of if flat roofs will leak, but when. However, having said this, I think it's important to perhaps raise building heights slightly to provide sloping to alleviate flat roof problems. Did you want to say something before I keep going? Okay. Regarding the modification of allowable use groups, outdoor sales such as eating and drinking should still require an SRU, as these situations are generally unique to a property and could alter the proposed setbacks or encroaching into sidewalks or on the street. I am in favor of limiting marijuana along First Street, especially for outdoor eating and drinking. Regarding storefronts, I'm in favor of encouraging awnings or porch designs to provide protection from the weather, as long as it doesn't distract from the visual appearance of the adjacent properties or inhibit pedestrian traffic on the sidewalks. Sorry, an email popped up. Regarding pedestrian walkways, it is unclear how this will work regarding the slope on First Street. Will the sidewalks include ramps or steps or both? Will this be reviewed on a case-by-case basis or part of a PUD or SRU? Finally, regarding placement, it is difficult to understand the verbiage here without some visual aids, such as examples of diagrams or photos. And that is it.
Okay, thank you for reading his extensive comments in there. Did you want to address any of the things that he asked there? Okay, so I just wanted to clarify, because I heard you say that earlier when I threw in that maybe we could always have an SRU, and you'd said that the plan discouraged, and I just want a little more clarification. So once we put the overlay district in place, an SRU couldn't override that? Or it could?
Well, I think it's really, okay, hold on. I'm gonna get the exact page here. Sorry. So the specific thing it says, and I'm gonna pop this on my screen so you can see. I'm on page 32 of the plan, which is where it talks about objective number 1, encourage new development to be in line with the traditional historic character and include a mix of uses to support a vibrant downtown. And then the call out box is for catalytic project number 2, First Street Overlay District. The first recommendation under the catalytic project number 2 is modify allowable use groups. Consider the following: outdoor sales, eating and drinking, or other outdoor commercial activities or establishments currently require a special review. These activities may be more desired in the future, especially if First Street becomes a flexible street. Not allowing or limiting marijuana use groups along First Street. There are many comments about downtown having too many marijuana uses. And then the second thing is modify yard and bulk requirements for First Street overlay to be in line with the community consensus from downtown workshops. Draft summary table showing changes between existing CBD district and proposed overlay district shown below, which is the one in my staff report. Require that PUDs within the First Street overlay abide by the new rules and consider eliminating parking requirements for ground floor commercial uses. And so I think what they're saying is a lot of times these kinds of streetscapes where they're flexible between driving and walking, one of the more modern terminologies for them is a festival street. And so on a festival street, what you want to be able to do is promote a use like our farmers market, especially if the development of that space happens and it needs to move. And so you want to create the ability to easily have those. There are other tools that we could use to do that. I talked about, you can use like a special event application. That would probably be the easiest way to handle it in our current code. But I think it's just like ease of administrative capacity. Like if you want to have, and Tom, you mentioned peddlers. Our peddler code is very, very specific. And so like, we know, we have artists that want to come, like we might want to have something like a plein air festival, or for instance, like a Fourth Friday festival. And if it's on public property, it could be beneficial to like allow those uses to happen. We also have a lot of mom and pop style vendors and artists, and being able to set up shop easily, kind of like a food truck, I guess, is a similar way, is maybe beneficial to the town because it increases our sales tax base and it also promotes the kind of business that is important to Nederland. So I think that's really what they're getting at, but the process for doing that is probably something we need to think about. And there's probably land use pieces there and then licensing pieces there as well. So
this keeps getting more and more in depth. It's like an onion, man.
Yeah.
Right. Other comments or questions about the overlay district before we move on for the night?
No, I'm going to walk the neighborhood though and make sure, I'm certainly going to walk the neighborhood before we have the next meeting.
Can I offer one other suggestion just for you guys as you're kind of thinking through this? There are a plethora of beautiful old pictures of Netherlands from like the 1800s on, and you can see a lot of these design elements in those pictures. And I think that the Historic Society has the most of them. And to be honest with you, I've just been doing Google searches of images of old Netherlands because, like we said, it's not a Queen Anne Victorian style Main Street. It's something else. And when you look at those pictures, a lot of these ideas are like really coming from that fabric. And so a lot of times, like you'll see it in development project where like, this is the fabric of my vision or whatever, and they'll show you like an old mill or whatever it is. But if you look at those pictures, a lot of these ideas come to life. And I think that that's something that's helped me as I've been kind of thinking about this. And I just thought I'd say like, it's a good way to kind of think about some of these ideas, like the awnings in particular. There were massive awnings all the way down the street at one time. And so I think looking at those things and just how people were activating the street is a kind of a cool idea.
Thank you. We certainly, I encourage all of the members to do some work on looking in this and really put together a good set of notes and comments for the work session for next month. All right, last chance, going.
Motion to adjourn?
No, we
Okay.
still got to do the staff report.
Okay, you guys ready for me?
Go.
All right, so I just wanted to outline a couple events and a couple of little things. One thing I wanted to outline on Thursday, July 31st from 6 to 7:30 at this very community center. The Boulder Watershed Collective Group will be here. They'll be doing a final community meeting for the Middle Boulder Creek Fuel Reduction Project coming up. So if you're interested in that, if you want to go to our Facebook or if you want me to shoot you an email, there is a link to register. It's a free event and there's going to be food. So if you want some free snacks, I suggest going. They're a great group. Another thing I wanted to highlight, as of yesterday, the new net is up at the tennis area rink. Yeah, court. There we go. I keep thinking rink. At Ned Rink. There we go. So feel free to go check that out if you play tennis. Our one was damaged in shipping, and so now it's up and good to go. Another thing I wanted to highlight is the town parks, recreation, open space and trails master plan has made some significant process. We have a capstone student, Maya Diaz, who is working with that group to kind of help get a final version of that plan. So really excited to see that come forward. Let's see here. So Safer Main Streets grant project is supposed to be going out to bid soon is what I'm seeing and hearing here. So we'll see if this happens because we are excited about that. You might notice Chipeta Park has had some improvements. So there were new materials added to improve safety and accessibility. Some crusher fines were installed, some pea gravel, new sand and mulch were added to all the flower beds around town. Rink Link Trail project is still being laid out and marked, but it is getting closer. Town cleanup, which is a huge success. Let's see here. Going into road work completing. Obviously there's been some rain and so streets is having to go back out there and it's been pretty rough. So be patient with them. But they have completed grading, ditching and some culvert cleanouts on 3rd Street, 5th Street, Stinky Gulch, Alpine, Doe Trail, Pine Cliff, Ponderosa, Wildwood Lane, Wildwood Drive, Upper Navajo, Lower Navajo, Sundown Trail, West 5th, West 6th, Sundance and Johnson Street. Again, they might be coming back to clean up some of these areas as we've had a lot of rain, but please just be patient and don't, feel free to reach out. You can always reach out to the front staff so we can kind of fill that for Josh because he's out there doing the work with his team. There has been some new equipment ordered. So they ordered a pull behind pneumatic roller attachment for walk and roll packers. They've also finally found, it looks like, a used compactor. And there's been some water truck repairs that they're kind of still working on to really get that going. Let's see. Andrew Samus, the newest employee, has completed the following road certifications: Road Scholar, Flagger Certification, CPR, OSHA 10-hour safety program. So he's already making some really good progress on the team, which we love to see. As you'll see, I did not have a report because I was on vacation. I am still actively fighting with our charger. Our level 3 charger is down again. And so John and I will be meeting with their team to figure out what are next steps.
I'm gonna
Um,
let Britt hit it with a baseball bat.
Yeah, it is probably one of the most frustrating things I've ever done in this town. And I've done a lot of different department stuff. But we're working on it. It's the busy time of the year for me. I'm seeing a lot of permits roll through. This is code enforcement, like peak time of the year as usual. I did want to know we do have printed forms and online forms that you can pull if you have a code complaint, and you can put your name or put anonymous if you do have complaints. We are seeing a lot. Jake and I are really trying to roll through them. Be very quick to go drive by. I drive by when he's not here. He drives by when I'm not able to drive by, and kind of, complete these projects and work with our residents. Other than that, I feel like, yeah, there's just a lot rolling. We have a lot rolling in my department. It's kind of a lot going on. Cass and I are looking into a few grants, and so that's kind of a part of our world right now. But other than that, it's the usual. We're just peak. It's peak time. You will see some, there's a lot of row permits that have been pulled lately, so you're going to see some traffic stuff. We're going to try to get it on social media. But if you're having issues or anything along that lines, please don't hesitate to reach out with me. We're building really good relationships with a lot of these companies, and so I like to have that back and forth. Any of the neighbors in Dyer, that we have some really good construction workers, I feel like, over there that are really trying to work with the neighbors. But if anyone needs contacts, feel free to reach out to me. And other than that, that's like a really quick rundown.
Anything to
So,
add, John?
Any questions? Yeah.
We had a very good public meeting about Big Springs
Egress.
route. So the board will be talking about that again on August 5th. Right now, the routes are illustrated downstairs. And so if anybody has comments, concerns, questions, the BOT will be kind of bringing those into the design process so we can finalize that. That's the goal, is to get those done as soon as humanly possible. And then, of course, last week we mentioned that we have come to terms for the purchase of Eldora. So that's the other big thing that happened in the last month or so. So if you have any questions about anything that's happening, we're always happy to touch base or anything like that.
Are we coming towards a consensus on which of those routes the neighbors want for egress?
We are going to design both routes.
Okay.
I think we need to prioritize safety for the firefighters.
Yeah.
And also for the community members coming out. And I think for that reason, where we are in the design process, we need to make sure we fully understand all the implications of both of those routes. I think we've studied a total of 7 routes over the last however long it's been since we got the congressionally directed spending award.
Mhm.
And through that process, Ned Fire has consistently said, like, the Magnolia route presents some challenges, and they're not against the Magnolia route, but being able to get down to the canyon presents some very big benefits to the community. So we are engaged with our partners in conversations about that. We have since the beginning had these conversations, but what we need to do is be like, it's not every idea all over the map. We have these 2 really specific ideas that kind of illustrate the best possibilities, and how do we work with you on that? And so I spent a good deal of time today with City of Boulder, and we're going to continue working with Boulder County and the Forest Service and all these folks, and then the neighbors as well. That's another important piece, just to make sure everybody's comfortable with what we're doing. But we have the money to design both routes. They can only be used for planning, this funding that we have. And so I think, like, at the end of the day, if we have 2 shovel-ready routes that work, then it's just a matter of which funding works, and we start making a good solution for the neighborhood.
Good.
I did want to add that JVA, I don't know if they sent them to us yet. I have to follow up, but they're going to have some kind of like very simple Google map that will route both if you want to walk them yourself. If you
Some coordinates, I think.
Yeah,
that we're-
coordinates that you can essentially download them with your Google. And so when he does send that to us, I'm happy if anyone wants to walk it and wants me to help them do that. I'm happy to show you how.
Well, let me tell you, I did that last summer, and it's some very
It is.
difficult terrain.
It is. If
so-
anyone
so-
wants to get a workout with me, I got a weighted vest. We can go.
I would say it'd be worthwhile to say, put a little warning out there for somebody if they're elderly or have any.
Yeah, I would
impairments.
not recommend this if you have like knee issues, back issues, like stuff like that. I would not recommend that for Mr. Roger right now.
And I'm glad that that we have the money to design 2 routes, because that was what was recommended after the 2016 fire, the fire department, they said, hey, we really need 2 routes. So it's good that we'll have both of those, and funding, that's a issue for down the line. And I want to tell you, both of you here, and please pass it on to the rest of the staff. We, as a group, and I certainly personally know how hard you guys are working. We got a lot of stuff in the air. I know you guys are just really working hard to try and keep everything going, and we really appreciate your efforts. So thank you very much.
We appreciate you guys being here with us on a night when there's also other things to do, especially a beautiful summer night. So thank you all for going through this conversation with us.
All right. Okay, other business? I have one thing. I just wanted to remind, after the egress meeting, I happened to get a chance to visit with the chief a little bit, and he let me know that they were going to be doing a cleanup day down at the bus barn on August 2nd. I have not seen, I put something on Ned Heads. I told him I encouraged him to get some stuff on social media, but I haven't seen it yet. But if you go to the Nederland Fire District Protection site, it says it right on there. It says what they will include. It's basically a second cleanup day, like what the town did, with the minus of chemicals, electronics, and tires. It seemed like just about everything else. He said that they were going to have about 6 to 8 rollaway dumpsters over there. It's going to be at the bus barn site on Ridge Road. So please spread the word, because, I know that one thing that happens with me on the cleanup day is it always comes up real fast before I've had a chance to really start working on what I need to get rid of. So here's our second opportunity, and I'm appreciative that they're putting out the effort and the resources to do that.
And you said it was on their website?
It's on their website, right on their.
I'll
front page.
share it to ours.
That's all I have.
The only, I would have something to say is, in terms of other business, if folks have questions, obviously, about the Eldora acquisition, please refer them to our frequently asked questions. There's a lot of speculation and, people saying they know things, and I promise you they don't. So just please look out for those frequently asked questions. We hope to release another one maybe in a couple of weeks or so, as we continue to gather more information. So just, that is the source and ground source of truth. I really appreciate you guys pointing folks that way. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to send any links so people have that accessible if needed.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion is adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourns at 8:53 PM. Thank you.